Alright guys, welcome back. We are playing Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 5, Meakashi. You know, it's always a good sign when I open my notes and the last thing I wrote down was the word gnome. That really is what we want. Last time, well, we started the chapter. We got Shion as the narrator. We love it. Who doesn't love Shion? She's automatically just become one of my favorite characters now. I don't know, I find it so I just love being in a new character's head. I can't resist it. It's so great. It's so great. Um, she is going through some stuff. I don't know, her mental state is very interesting to me because I feel like we know from Watanagashi, from chapter 2, we know that it's going to end up very different than this, right? My thought is, obviously, she hasn't met Satoshi yet, and we know her and Satoshi are gonna have a pretty close relationship, right? Seemed like that was the only reason she was like the manager of the baseball team. Eri was making fun of her for the whole, their relationship, that kind of thing, right? Seems like she probably hates Sadako because of that. She was like rambling about the whole Sadako being cursed thing, all that. So I'm curious if somehow Satoshi and her relationship with him is going to be what changes her entire mindset about like Mion and stuff too. I just don't know how those things are going to connect, right? And maybe I'm silly for trying to connect them. Maybe it's just not. Maybe it's just unrealistic. Maybe it's just going to be different things, right? Um, like maybe just her relationship with Satoshi and her changing viewpoint, I suppose, on her thoughts about Mion and like her place in the family are just separate. Or alternatively, I mean, she could just be lying to herself, and that's kind of the vibe I get, kind of what I'm feeling like where it is right now, is that she actually doesn't feel great about her position in the family. Because of course she doesn't, right? And like it's so obvious in her actions, right? Though her entire behavior and everything feels like it's so defined by the way she was treated by her family for her whole life, right? Like obviously that goes for like anyone who would be in her situation. Um, but I guess just what is going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? I guess I could just always say that. Maybe that's what I should just say from now on. Instead of actually like talking about things, I should just say what's going to happen, and then that can just be it. Um, anything else though? We got music. We got new music, that's for sure. I I don't know. I'm just very curious where we're going. As always. What else can I say? What else can I say? Well, let's see. Let's see where we're going. It's a very quiet afternoon, as always. Since I can't go outside as myself, I have to match schedules with Mion when I go shopping. Right. Like, I'm gonna try and not ramble for 5 minutes about every single line, but I can't help it. Even just like this thing, right? The fact she has to match schedules with Mion, no matter what, right? She's talked so much already about this idea of like being self-sufficient, supporting herself, right? Of course, that's all of these things that are in her mind after the way she's been treated her whole life by her family, right? She like has to, or accept her place as like the inferior, which she doesn't want to do. Um, so it's so. I guess she says she isn't bothered by it, but it's remarkable, I suppose you can say, that her schedule, even in this moment, is still dictated entirely by Mion, by her connection with her family in this way, right? Like, she's still, of course, not free from any of this, right? No matter what she does, she's still Shion Sonozaki, and that means a lot in Okonomiya. That means a lot while she's here. So it's like, it's so hard for me to believe her at all, when it's just every line like this. Like, yeah, since I can't go outside by myself, I have to match schedules with Mion when I go shopping, Every single line is just, her situation and everything is entirely influenced so much by the incredibly unfair treatment of her family, Like, God. I've gotten used to it by now, so it's no longer a hassle. Because of this, I naturally have to buy things in bulk. Today, I shuttled between shops in my home.
あれは買った、これも買った。
Does she have any experience living on her own at all? I mean, confidence brings you a long way, I suppose, right? She wants to do it, so.
あ、そうだ。今日って100円セールの日じゃなかったっけ?
Although, I don't know. I guess we don't really know what she was really treated like before being shipped off to St. Lucia, so who knows?
忘れてた。
Being in a good mood, I spun around with my arms spread out. I felt I felt like a little whirlwind. Oh god, my arm had a motorcycle parked on the sidewalk. It obviously went over... Okay, are we gonna be doing like a repeat of what Keiichi did in Chapter 2? It obviously wasn't where it was supposed to be. Oh god, uh-oh. I gave it a kick with no hesitation. Oh my god. There were 3 motorcycles lined up there in a row. What are we doing? They all fell like dominoes. It was a beautiful sight. This is fun, I thought. Great. Being in such a good mood made me leave my guard down. Right. I didn't realize that the owners of the motorcycles were right nearby. They looked pretty scary. Is this stupider than when Keiichi did it? I'm trying to decide. I guess it's pretty similar. Keiichi was in a good mood, decided to kick some motorcycles. She was in a good mood, decided to kick some motorcycles. I guess maybe that's just a pastime in Japan I'm not familiar with, you know? They grabbed me by the neck and dragged me into a dark alley. Oh! Right! Then they called me all kinds of names. Really? Everything was happening too quickly for me to grasp what was going on. Yeah. Right! It's the same ones. Like, probably, right? Whoa. They can't really talk properly. I didn't have a clue what they were saying. I had to translate their alien tongue into normal human words in order to understand. We were very upset because he knocked down our motorcycles. You should immediately pay for the repair and compensation. Yeah, that was probably it. Yeah, something like that. That's our offer. What do you say? We'd be happy to listen to your opinion. Something like that? Yeah, in that vein, I suppose, right? I don't know what that one's supposed to be. God, I love her. Oh my god. I know what they're trying to say, but somebody has to warn them about the way they park their motorcycles. Obviously, of course. It wouldn't be fair to those who obey the rules if there were no punishment for those who disobey them. This was an accident, but it must also be God's will. I mean, is this an accident? Maybe. But God, you can use me to punish these guys, but how will you compensate me later? Wait, I want to say there's something interesting you could say about her thinking this kind of mindset, this idea of the rules being important in this way. A punishment for people who disobey them. I don't know, though. I'm not gonna go crazy with that yet. I heaved a huge sigh. Of course, I wasn't afraid in this situation at all. Because it wasn't a dangerous one for me. These 3 guys were yelling at the top of their lungs at a girl. They didn't look good doing it, and they had too many disadvantages, I suppose. First, there was the difference in gender and in the number of people. Even if I did something wrong, as men shouting at a woman, it didn't make them look like they were in the right. What if they start attacking me? I added to that, there were 3 of them. It already looked like it was going to get violent. What if it does? Second, the location. Taking a girl into a dark, narrow alleyway is already a bad idea, and on top of that, they're asking for money, not just an apology. Thanks to these facts, the public will be on my side. That doesn't really help you get out of the immediate situation right now. So this was a fight they couldn't possibly win. The only way for them to win would be to take my money before somebody finds out. Considering that, taking me to this narrow, secluded alleyway might have been a smart move, since fewer people would find out about the situation. Right, of course. She literally isn't. Now, I knew how slim their chances of winning were. From the very beginning, they had picked the wrong girl. Her, being so calm in this situation is, weird. You know? I'm Mion Sonozaki now. Oh, shit. True. It'd be foolish to micro an Okonomiya. Soon enough, the people of Hinamizawa would notice me and gather around. They don't spare mercy for their enemies, no matter what. The punks didn't know this area well. If they did, they'd have known how silly it was to rob Mion. Plus, the alleyway isn't always as empty as they assumed. This side street is a shortcut, which local people frequently use on their way in. In the late afternoon, many people would be passing through here. That time had almost arrived. I hope, if I held off a little longer, the street would soon be filled with people. Then the punks would have to go away. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to wait in order to win. This was a simple fight like that. You just have to wait in order to win. That is an interesting... Wait in order to win. That's just the kind of line that makes me feel like that's going to apply to something more than this situation, right? Where they could hurl abusive language at me, or lift me up by my collar, they weren't actually going to resort to violence. Cheers to the educational system for ingraining the ladies first mindset. Like, you're really confident about that. Like, I guess. But, as a wicked person, I wanted to toy with them a bit, even though I could win this by waiting. Compare this to when Keiichi was in this same situation, and he was doing the Keiichi thing where he started, like, stammering and bumbling along and fell to the ground and was talking about the cold liquid filling his body. You know, this Keiichi thing he always does, you know. She's pretty cool-headed, huh? I wanted to paint them as even more villainous, and drive them into a corner that would be even harder to talk their way out of. That demonic desire was rearing its horns, of course, because you're Mion now, right? To put it plainly, I'd only need to act as the poor, helpless victim a little further. Like the pathetic, pitiful, tragic heroine everyone wants to sympathize with. Interesting. I can't help but feel like this whole situation, her being so calm and collected even in this situation, I don't know, I guess it just shows she is used to this kind of thing, maybe, through, like, just the entire way she's lived her life with, like, her family, right? Maybe not, like, violent confrontations like that, but I imagine her becoming, like, numb to this kind of thing, you know what I mean? And her, like, this idea of, like, playing this kind of role for a situation like this, you know? Like the pathetic, pitiful, tragic heroine everyone wants to sympathize with. In a case like this, I shouldn't start crying immediately, because they'd get nervous and draw back. If it were a truly threatening situation, that would work, but I needed something different here. I'd pretend to be strong at first. In fact, I thought, why don't I challenge them? And eventually I'd start trembling, my voice would fade, and I'd get tears in my eyes. It'd be even better if I played the role of a strong girl who's slowly giving in to fear. Mion and I are probably the only ones who are capable of pulling that kind of stuff off. For Mion, I don't know if that's an act for Mion, because we've seen that happen a couple times with her, right? Well, I'm probably better off than her. Very, very interesting. Again, I feel like that shows the way that she views Mion is so different, you know? Like, her thoughts about her. I can't help but think it has to be related to the fact she's always been toward Mion's better than her, right? Did you? I talked back with a little hesitation. Am I getting tears yet? Yes. By the way, I've heard men can't shed tears on command. I feel sorry for them. The three punks faltered a bit due to my sudden change in attitude, but they soon started yelling at me again. I had to keep it going. That way they blatantly looked like they were picking on a helpless girl. Yeah. Very impressive, very impressive. Very good, very good. I'm feeling horrible for you, Shia. I mean, I kind of am. Like, she is in, like, a terrifying situation right now. It's just because of the way she's thinking about it that, like, makes it so, like, weird, you know? She kind of is being literally harassed by a bunch of crazy people right now, so, sure. She's doing it now, isn't that good enough? It looked like they were laying off. Did I overdo it a little? It'd be boring if they let go of me now. Yeah, say something crazy. Say something crazy. At that moment. Oh, there he is! Oh my god, there he is. Oh my god, it's Satoshi. Oh my god, we get to see him. How long has it been? Whew, it's him. It's Nini. He's here. And of course he would want to protect her, right? God, he's such a great guy. Oh god, I can already tell. Right, just like Sadako, right? Like that's what he's like. Yeah. Can't help but feel that it's kinda rough, of course, that Shion's pretending, right? And that's what makes him, like, react like this, right? I assume that's part of why he's intervening right now, of course, right? Reminds me of Sadako, I'm sure. A boy around my age appeared. He was skinny. He looked weak. He looked younger than he probably was. I wonder how old he is. Do we know? Is he the same age as Keiichi? He also looked smart. He bravely glared at the punks. What's this one called? Do we know this one? Thanks. The punks turned away from me to face the boy instead. The boy looked a bit agitated when the punks started yelling at him. They sure were ruthless. But the boy must have known that from the beginning. He's used to getting yelled at, unfortunately. He must have known that he was going into a dangerous situation, yet he didn't hesitate. How will he handle it? He must have wanted to shout back at them, but he probably never used that kind of language in his life. Yeah, he's, like, been conditioned not to, I assume, so he couldn't have expressed his feelings out loud. Obviously, that's something I literally never thought of until now. Shion and Satoshi have similar upbringings in a way, right? Like, I guess you could say Satoshi's is worse, because he faces, like, horrible physical abuse constantly, right? I mean, there's something to be said, of course, for the psychological abuse Shion suffers in terms of, like, the way she's been told she's, like, nothing, and, like, has been pushed off to the side forever, you know what I mean? Like, I think, like, the abandonment and the inferiority that Shion feels is probably, it's different than, like, the horrible physical abuse Satoshi suffers. I mean, it's not a competition, right? But that is interesting. It is a connection between them. It's interesting, you know? He might have not even known what to say. So he just kept on glaring at them, to let them know he wasn't going anywhere. The three punks, though, might have thought he was just lost for words in his fear. But I knew different. Although I wonder how he stands up to the abuse for Sadako, you know, like, if he tries to fight back at all, if he, like, acts like this, just tries to, like, be defiant about it in any way, or if that would just make it worse, you know? But I knew different. The boy was overpowering them with nothing but his will. The punks were losing. So impressive. So, they resorted to violence. Oh, God. They grabbed him and knocked him down. They hit, kicked, and tossed him around. It looked painful, but I knew. It was his victory. If you say so. In the end, local passerby stopped the punks. They made no further fuss and just went away. The boy stood up. He was covered in dust. He smiled when our eyes met. And asked if I was alright. Oh, it's love at first sight. It's over. It's over for her. He didn't look particularly okay himself, though. Like, I wonder, I'm assuming, of course, right? The problem, right now, she's Mion, not Shion, right? But I'm just wondering if this is, you know, gonna be the first person who's, like, what, gonna like her for being her, instead of, you know, see her for Shion, you know what I mean? I'm curious.
あんたもよくもまあ勝てない喧嘩を買う人ですね。
Interesting. You kinda do the same thing, though.
次からは勝てる算段がついてから喧嘩を買うことを深くお勧めしますけどね。
最初は迷ったよ。
He laughed, saying that he was watching from the beginning. That meant he had the option to walk away. But instead, he worked up the courage and stepped in.
そういうのは勇気って言わず、
right.
身の程知らずとも言うかな。
You think? Maybe. I don't know. Oh, God.
ミオンは口が減らないね。
Oh, he thinks it's
助けてくれ
Mion.
てありがとうぐらい言ってくれよ。
Of course he thinks it's Mion.
泣いてたじゃないか。
別に泣いてなんかいません。
Right, of course he knows Mion, right? He's part of the group. Of course.
あれはちょっとした演技で。
God, she sounds so much like Mion right now. She's put on the Mion voice.
いいよ、演技でも。
ちょっと信じてないでしょ。私が本当に泣き出すと思いますか？
思わないよ。天下御免の園崎ミオンが。
I would believe it. I would believe it.
誰も思わないよ。
God, that's just sad. It's sad how everyone views Mion in that way. That just shows the pressure on her in that sense, you know what I mean? Because we know she is the kind of person who would cry in that situation. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just because of the position she's in, the way she's, like, forced to act in a way.
何を笑ってるんですか？全然信じてないでしょ。私が半泣きなんてするわけない。
信じるから。
I realized one thing. He must be one of Sis's friends, exactly. He didn't seem to realize I'm her twin. He thought I was Mion with a different hairstyle. God, he's just like Keiichi. Oh my god, it's the Keiichi thing, but... Oh my god, I like... Okay, alright. Mion and I had to live separately since before we went to elementary school. Mion was in Hinamizawa, and I was in Okinomi. I lived in a totally different environment from her. So it's not strange that people don't know me. Actually, only very few people know I exist. Yeah. I almost told him that I'm not Mion, but I managed to stop myself. Shion shouldn't be here. Of course, I mean, even that, this desire to tell him that you're not Mion, I think that's pretty telling, right? He's from Hinamizawa. It wouldn't be good if he thought he saw Mion look-alike in Okonomiya. So I had to act like Mion, doing everything for that, yeah. Dealing with him could be more difficult than handling those punks.
でもまあミオンにも少しは女の子らしいところがあっ
Oh
た
my
んで
god,
安心
it's
したよ。
literally the Keiichi thing again.
なん
God.
だか妙に引っかかる言い方ですけど、つまりはどういう
ミオン
Sorry,
の
I
ことだか
skipped
ら
that.
なんだか珍妙な憲法でも使って瞬く間に撃退してしまうんじゃないかって期
Of
待して
course.
たね。
She probably could have, if she
だから
wanted to.
泣き出した時は正直驚いた。
だからあれは泣き真似だったって言ってるじゃないですか。
And what's funny is she was. She
さ
actually
っきか
was.
ら
That's
人
the
の
funny
話
part.
ちゃんと聞いて。
He gently put his hand on top of my head and stroked it as if stroking a kitten. Oh man. Man, oh man. I could remember somebody doing that to me when I was little, but it had been quite a while since somebody stroked my head. Yeah, any kind of affection like that. Oh my god, maybe this is part of what's gonna make her jealous of Mion, right? I didn't know what to do. Why did it make me so embarrassed? My face reddened all at once. I couldn't say anything.
バカにしてます。
Man.
ひょっとして。
I stuttered in embarrassment. He looked calm, as if he was used to doing this.
なんでもいいよ。よかったじゃないか。
よかったって何がです
And that they didn't kill you.
無事で。
Yeah. He smiled while he kept stroking my head. His smile looked divine. He wasn't going to stay for long. He'd already saved me from those guys after all. He wasn't going to stay for long.
僕は行か
Yeah.
なきゃならないから。 そろそろ行くね。
うん。
I wanted to go through all the steps of meeting someone for the first time, but he didn't. As far as he was concerned, he just saved a friend from danger and wanted to leave quickly to avoid seeming pretentious. He and Mion must be friends who knew each other well. So I couldn't bring myself to ask, "What's your name?" Mion's friend smiled once again. His smile looked as refreshing as a clear blue sky. This time, he smiled a bit mischievously.
安心しなよ。
Ah.
ミオンが泣いてたなんて誰にも言わないから。
I'm just thinking about this in relation to, like, Keiichi and Shion in Chapter 2, you know? I just wonder how much of Satoshi she saw, like, in Keiichi in Chapter 2, you know what I mean? Because I think it's immediate, like, she is gonna be, like, in love with Satoshi, obviously, right? Like, I think that's clear. I think a large part of why is this, like, genuine affection that she's, like, getting exposed to for, like, the first time since she was, like, a little kid, I guess, right? Like, of course, you know? I'm trying to think, were there moments like that with Keiichi in Chapter 2? Because again, unless I'm completely off on the timeline in Chapter 2, the first time Keiichi actually met Shion was, the last time at Angel Mort when she replaced Mion to troll Keiichi, right? And if that was the first time that they met, I'm trying to think, was there anything Keiichi did in that moment? Like, cause Mion, cause I mean, Keiichi thought that she was Mion, right? So like, I guess it's the same with Satoshi here. Satoshi also thinks she's Mion, so I guess it's kind of the same, right? That she gets so much out of this from the way Satoshi's treating her, even though he thinks she's Mion. Same, I guess, with Keiichi when they went on their little date, on their little walk, you know? Like, maybe, I guess, right?
もっとも言ったところで誰も信じないだろうけどね。
And like, the reason I'm talking about this is because it's so obvious that, like, I don't think Shion, at the end of Chapter 2, made everything up about her motivations for doing what she did, right? I think she genuinely had feelings for Keiichi in some way. I could just be crazy. Maybe she was just trolling. I don't think so. That would make the end of Chapter 2 feel so pointless, you know what I mean? I don't think she was trolling. I think she did have feelings for Keiichi in some way, right? And I think that's a part of her motivation, is that kind of jealousy, you know? Like when she's talking at the end of Chapter 2 to Keiichi when he's tied to the torture chair about, like, the doll, and how she wished that Keiichi had given her the doll that day, right? It's like you feel like, if you think that's Mion, that she's talking about the doll from the beginning of Chapter 2, right? Kind of the whole thing that triggered everything, right? But it makes me wonder, like, I wonder if what she truly meant by that is like when at the end of the chapter, when Keiichi, when it's the Shion Mion reveal, right? They walk into the toy store, Mion's there, all that stuff happens, you know. I wonder if almost what she was referring to in that moment is she wishes that Keiichi had, like, chosen her anyway, despite that happening, right? Had given her the doll, like, then, you know what I mean? Because that's kind of the... I can imagine that being a big thing that might change her feelings about Mion in that moment, too, right? Is, like, seeing the way Keiichi reacts and, like, the way their relationship changes. Or just, I mean, again, I guess they didn't really have a relationship before that night, but you know what I mean? The way he reacts to her upon learning that her and Mion are different people, you know what I mean? Anyway, that was kind of off topic, I don't know.
天下無双の委員長が泣いてたなんて
Right,
絶対
right.
誰も信じない
Of course, and that's the problem for Mion. Sadly. I wonder how Shion takes that, though. He patted the dust off his butt once again. Because I think Shion has, like, a similar view of Mion. Maybe, right? He walked back to the sunny main road, walked away from the dark alley. Then he turned around.
じゃあまた明日学校でねうん学校で
Man, her voice. He disappeared into the brightly lit street. God, she is... Yeah, she is... It's over. I continued to sit in the gloomy alleyway. I could no longer see him. I was just staring absent-mindedly at the bright light. That was the first time I met Sachi-kun. God. Rough, huh? Ooh, I'm not even allowed to walk freely under the sun. I met a boy on a sunny day. How come a perverse girl like me fell in love with his innocence? Notebook, page 5. A perverse girl like me. That's really how you think of yourself, huh?
そりゃあサトシだよサトシその特徴的な雰囲気と気安く頭を撫でる癖は間違いないね
Yeah.
ふんサトシくんって言うんだ
That's a lot for Sadako, I'm sure. The boy from earlier is called Satoshi Hojo-kun. Mion said he's always daydreaming. Ah. So she didn't believe that he saved me at
普段
first.
はしっかり者の妹にいろいろと尻を叩かれてるな
If you say so, I guess.
ふん妹がいるんだうん妹はサトコって言ってねなかなか面白いやつだよなかなか悪知恵が働くしねそのくせ追い詰められると泣くし
Yeah.
見てて退屈しない子だねまあ最近はいろいろとあってね
Rough for both of
ちょっ
them.
と調子を落としてるけど
His sister came up naturally in the conversation. Obviously, Shion knows it was the Hojo parents who died, right? I tried to soak up every scrap of information about Satoshi-kun. Why? Why am I trying to ask so much about him? Why do you think? As I asked myself that, the feeling I got when he stroked my head came back to me. I must have been blushing.
もしもしシオンえあごめん聞いてる聞いてるそもそもねサトコがおばとお見合い
Yeah,
が悪い
yeah.
らしいんだ
I
よ
wonder what month it is. I wonder how close we are to Otanagashi, to all that going down.
その辺はうまく立ち回ってるんだけどさ
Mature.
サトコは嫌なことがあると素直に表情に出しちゃうからね
Sashi's mature, so he knows how to conduct himself. I don't know if I like that framing of it, right? I don't know if that's, like, I guess. I don't know, is it really maturity to be able to undergo abuse like that? Like, maybe. What Sis told me was very interesting. She told me that the parents of Sachi-kun and his little sister are dead. Sachi-kun and Sadako are now living with their uncle and aunt. They don't seem like very respectable people, yeah. They're always fighting, and the uncle is cheating on the aunt. He mostly lives with his mistress. Sachi-kun and Sadako entered into that unwelcome environment. What surprises me the most is the fact that Sachi-kun's parents were the Hojo couple who were the leaders of the pro-dam activists, yeah. That fact must have added something to the situation. I don't know what kind of stance the uncle and aunt took during the dam conflict, but they must have taken some indirect blows. Sachi-kun's parents died after bothering them so much, and even left them their children. The uncle and aunt obviously can't love those kids. It just makes me surprised that, like, that Sachi and Sadako even go to the uncle and aunt, right? Like, I assume they aren't just left with them. I assume that they had to accept the kids. You know what I mean? There has to be some kind of process in Japan other than just, oh, you have to take care of these kids now, right? Maybe they wanted to. Maybe they get, like, government assistance for it and they, you know, because they know they're just not going to give a crap about these kids, you know? So, things have gotten worse this past year, too. Women can be really nasty bullies. She would know. Sometimes it doesn't matter who they're bullying, even if it's a kid. On top of that, women tend to care less about propriety than men. As a result, Sadako seems exhausted with it all. I can imagine Sachi-kun bravely protecting his little sister. Just like when he saved me. Yeah.
ならサトシ君も普段は疲れてるってことになるのかな。サトコがおばにいじめられるたびに、
Yep.
きっとサトシ君は妹をかばってると思う。
Immediately it makes me think about Mion and Shion's relationship, right? The way Satoshi protects Sadako versus the way that Mion and Shion's relationship has panned out, right? The way that like Shion shows so much deference to like Mion's superior position. Mion is frankly, I guess, just like what, not as strong of a person as Satoshi? I mean, it's not really like a failing on her part exactly, you know, it's a large power structure she'd have to fight against, you know? She just kind of accepts it, right? She certainly doesn't fight for Shion's sake, the same way that Satoshi does for Sadako's sake, right? I'm not really blaming Mion for it, I mean, what would Mion do? You know what I mean? I'm just saying, from Shion's perspective, I wonder if this is the kind of thing that could be going through her head. If not right now, maybe eventually, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really think it's fair, if she does start thinking of it in that way. Because it's a different situation, right? Obviously, it's not easy for Satoshi either. But I don't know if that kind of bravery, that kind of, like, recklessness, the way Shion called it, right? I don't know if that's fair either, right? I don't know if that kind of bravery is something you should expect, you know? Like, yeah, Shion could compare Satoshi and Mion's attitudes to both to herself and Sadako, and think that's unfair in a sense, right? But I don't know. I wonder. We'll see where it's going.
妹が疲れるのと同じくらい、サトシ君も疲れてると思うのは私の考えすぎ？
Yeah. Wonder if Mion really hasn't put that much thought into it.
どうだろうね。
I mean, it's a heavy thing to think about. Had I said something wrong? Mion sounded a bit taken aback. Or if Mion has put a lot of thought into it, and, like, she doesn't like thinking about it because of all the stuff I just said, right? So that meant Mion can't tell how he's feeling, because he's always wearing that blank look, so she never considered it. Maybe. How can she be that insensitive, even though she's around him all the time? I was amazed to realize that. Interesting. Yeah, she just wants to change the subject, huh? Huh, thinking of her as insensitive. I wonder, is it insensitive, or is it... Mion does have a tendency to avoid issues, right? We know that from, like, her approach to her relationship with Keiichi in Chapter 2, right? I wonder if this is kind of in the same vein as that, you know? She really has a problem with, like, avoidance, right? Like, if we think to... Like, when she went to Rena for help about her relationship with Keiichi in Chapter 2, right? And she said all that stuff about wanting to start over, right? Just try again as someone else, you know? Because that's easier to do than trying to actually address the situation, right? I wonder how much that goes for her relationship with Shion in this moment, all this stuff with Satoshi, you know? It just seems like a problem Mion has in general, you know? I don't know if it's fair to call it insensitivity.
文系みたいだから読書とか好きなわけ？あ、
Yeah, I remember they said he was like bookish one time. Yeah.
最近読んでる本はね、
That's gonna be something crazy. I continued asking about him. About what he likes, dislikes, and what he thinks about. You're making it so obvious, girl. Come on. I asked Sis all these questions because I wanted to know more about him. It was the first time I'd ever been that interested in somebody. I didn't want to admit that I had feelings like that. Did I fall in love just because of a stroke on the head? Am I stupid or what? Don't say that about yourself. I know, I think that makes so much sense. I think you're, like, starved for affection of that kind, you know? Like, when I remembered the feeling of his hand on my head, my heart feels tingly. I tried doing it myself, but it didn't feel the same. Exactly, right? Like, this whole idea of being self-sufficient, rejecting that kind of, like, that kind of thing, you know? Like, it's, you know, no surprise she has that attitude because of how she's been treated by everyone, but not everyone's like that, you know? Ha ha ha, I'm stupid. What am I doing now? Stroking my own head. Oh my god, that's just so sad thinking of her doing that. It's over. I became stupid. Oh god.
お姉にはわかるまいこの気持ち。
No, I bet she could. Come on. She does sound stupid. When would I see him again? I felt as if my suffocating life had finally grown brighter. Ah, God. It's so... No, what's so sad, too, is there's more friendships and more relationships she could make, more than just Satoshi, right? And, like, obviously, like, I'm not saying her relationship with Satoshi's, like, gonna be a bad thing or something, right? I'm just saying, like, the problem is she's so starved for affection, right? That's really her problem, right? And she can get that from more than just Satoshi. She doesn't have to be completely reliant on him just for that, right? Like, man, the life I lived really was beginning to suffocate me. Because I could just imagine, right? It's like if Satoshi is the only person in her entire life she gets that from, that's just not a good dynamic to have, right? Like, I go make some friends, you know? Like, she's free. She can do stuff now. I mean, she's not really free, right? I couldn't go out freely. And I always had to make arrangements with Mion before going to work. Yeah, the life I lived really was beginning to suffocate me. No kidding. I thought my life would improve after escaping from school, but in reality, it wasn't that easy. It's not healthy to live like this for too long. Yeah. Without any friends to hang out with, I felt like I was hibernating. Okay, exactly. I started to feel the dangers of falling into boredom. All I could think of now was Satoshi Hojo-kun's face. I'd only met him briefly, but my encounter with him had a great impact on my new life. I felt like something exciting was going to happen. Really, I was hyped up like a little kid. The more I thought about it, I realized I'd been thinking about him a lot lately. This might be a crush. No kidding, huh? I felt a little ridiculous idolizing him in such a romantic way there. Then, out of the blue, I got a chance to see him again. Let's go!
Are?
I saw a familiar face at twilight in the park. He was sitting on the swing. Ugh. Probably just wants to avoid going home, right? I assume. He looked like he was zoning out, or maybe deep in thought. I wonder if Sadako's with him? He didn't notice me, even though I was right in front of him. I reminded myself to speak and act like Mion before talking to him. Just don't.
Hey! 何やってんのこんなとこでさ。
God, she's so good at it.
ミオンか。びっくりしたな。
そんなに驚いてるようには見えないけどね。さっきからいたんだけど、ずっと気づかなかった？
そうなのかい？ごめん、気づかなかったよ。
Wonder what he's thinking about. He smiled self-derisively and shrugged. He looked depressed. Something I need to think about, of course, is, we know Sashi's gonna kill his aunt soon. If that killing is in any way motivated by the shit that makes you go crazy, we should look for signs of that in Satoshi, right? Which I guess is just like, what, hallucinations, like stuff like that, right? Of course, I could imagine this killing not, like, I could imagine him just killing his aunt, right? I could imagine him doing it for other reasons, you know, like, completely outside of that kind of influence, but still something to think about. He looked depressed, like something was troubling him.
何か悩み事でも？聞いて楽になるものなら聞くし、力になれるものなら惜しまないけど。
いや、別に。
Yeah, I'm sure he has Sure, he likes to not try and push things on other people, right? That's always been.
私はサトシ君には一個借りがあるからね。それとも何？おじさんじゃ力になれないと思ってるわけ？見くびられたもんだな。
She even got the Oji-san thing down.
別に。ミオンの力を借りたら
Yeah.
意味がないことだからさ。
Huh.
ほう。
So sad that he has this attitude about it. And again, in a way, it is similar, I think, to Shion's attitude about her situation with her family. I think Shion is further into this, like, self-deception about her own feelings about it than Satoshi is. I think it's easier for her because the abuse isn't, like, physical, right?
それは何？
Like Satoshi is so conditioned to not have his troubles, to not push his troubles onto other people or, like, feel like he's doing that because he spends so much time protecting Sadako, right? So he feels like he has to be strong. He doesn't want to somehow victimize other people with his problems because that's what he's so focused on all the time, right?
私ごとき女の手は借りたくないってこと？
Thinking him unfair, I puffed up my cheeks in a sulky gesture. Satoshi-kun noticed that and smiled.
違うんだよ、ミオン。僕に実力がなくて、ここ一番で打てなかった。
Oh, the baseball team, of course. Of course. I mentally rifled through all the information about Satoshi-kun that Sis had given me. He doesn't look like much of an athlete, but apparently Satoshi-kun belongs to a junior baseball team. They're called the Hinamizawa Fighters. I doubt he's very skilled, since I didn't hear much about his contributions to the team. Obviously, we've talked about it before, but, like, his interest in baseball is so different than, like, Keiichi getting into baseball and Onikashi, you know? Even though Rena, like, compared the two, right? Rena was, like, yelling about how it's just like Satoshi getting into baseball, but, like, Satoshi joined the baseball team and all of this. I doubt all of this is in preparation to beat his aunt to death with a baseball bat, right? So I wonder why he joined the baseball team. Is it to avoid being home as much as possible, right? Like, what Mion said about the club, how it was just a way, essentially, to keep Sadako out of the house as much as possible, you know? Like, maybe. I doubt he's very skilled, since I didn't hear much about his contributions to the team. Maybe that's why he doesn't tell many people that he's a member. Given how down he felt as a result of messing up, though, he must be fairly dedicated. I deduced all that from what Sis told me, and carefully chose my words so as to sound like her.
なんだ、そんなことで落ち込んでるわけ？
そんなことでって簡単に言ってくれるな、ミオンは。
Yeah. I pat his back while chuckling. Satoshi-kun would probably call me insensitive. I knew I should listen to him, rather than trying to cheer him up. Acting like Sis was probably the wrong thing to do in this case, but I had no choice. This was just how she'd react in this situation. Maybe. I don't know if you know Mion as well as you think you do.
それなら落ち込むんじゃなくて、なお一層練習に打ち込んで次のチャンスを目指すのが適当ってもんでしょうが。
Although I don't know. Maybe she would. Just hard to say.
こういう時は練習しかないよ、練習。まあ、サトシ君に相手のピッチャーに小細工をしてまで勝ちたいという執念があるなら、おじさんいろいろと協力できるかもしれませんけどね。
It's so sad she has to do this.
ずるしても何の意味もないよ。
It's a great face.
はあ。
Satoshi-kun hung his head after letting his regrets out with a big sigh. Surrender, defeat, resignation were all visible in that gesture of his.
諦めがいいのか未練たらたらなのか。やっぱり男に生まれたからには、一
You're a
度くら
man.
いは晴れ舞台でスターになってみたいでしょう。
Satoshi grinned and said yes.
もちろんヒーローを目指すのが花だけど。
It's interesting. Like, what's interesting about this right now is, like, Shion thought about how she has to act like Mion. She wishes she would act a different way. But she can't, right? She's acting in the way she thinks Mion would act in this moment. So if her approach to what's happening right now is, like, effective, and it cheers Satoshi up and he feels good about it, how is Shion going to feel about that then, right? Because in her mind, this isn't really her acting like this. This is her just pretending to be Mion and trying to do what she thinks Mion would do. So it's almost like this would just feed into that inferiority, this idea that Mion is, like, better, you know? Like, obviously it's just sad that she isn't able to be herself right now with him, right?
それが目的で野球をやってるわけじゃないよ。
Right?
純粋にボールを投げたり打ったりするのが楽しいからやってるんだよ。ミオンでもそういうのわかるよね。
I'm sure.
おじさんはそういうのはあんまわかんないかな。私は結果が一番であるならどんな種目でも大好きだし、一番になれないのに大好きなんてものはあんまりよくわかんないね。
Interesting that she... It's very telling about, I think, about how she thinks of Mion, right? Yeah.
ミオンらしい答えだな。
Having realized that I'm trying to make him feel better, he laughed along. He didn't look depressed anymore. I guess he was just feeling down because of the game. He wasn't as depressed as I thought. Maybe I just jumped to conclusions when I saw him sitting alone in the park. Well,
でも
might be more to it, right?
ミオンは一番になるためにいろいろと努力をするからね。それは偉いと思うよ。
They did say, they said at one point that Mion used to be, like, way worse at games, right? That she used to lose all the time. I wonder if Mion's past that phase now, or if she wins all the time now already. I don't know. He smiled gently and stood up. Then he started stroking my head. Oh my god, she's gonna pass out. All of a sudden. I totally wasn't prepared for that. She's gonna die. It's over. Oh my god. I thought this when he did it last time, but how can he stroke somebody's head so easily? I felt like I'd turned into a little kid. Memories from kindergarten came to mind. My face must have been red. I felt embarrassed, but also like I was in heaven. Sachiko stroked me as though petting a cat. She's dead. It's over. I was blushing with my eyes closed. I felt helpless, like a girl being treated by the dentist with her mouth open and her eyes shut. Sachiko didn't seem to notice my feelings at all. He didn't seem to care. I hate him. Like, girl, come on. With my eyes still closed, I waited for him to finish. He suddenly withdrew his hand.
じゃあ、僕はそろそろ帰るよ。
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
おばさんに野球の帰りに買い物をしてくるよう頼まれてるから。
Yeah. Go with him. My voice faltered. I was so embarrassed.
買い物なら
Perfect. There we go. Awesome.
夕飯の買い物
I'm sure Mion never goes shopping. Like, yeah, literally.
ミオも買い物するんだ。お手伝いさんが全部やってくれるって言って
Literally.
なかったっけ？
Like, what's her excuse gonna be? Shoot. I messed up. In the main Sonozaki house, the maids do everything. Therefore, Mion hardly goes grocery shopping, and she's bragged to some people about that. I should have known better. Still, it wouldn't be too hard to find an
町に
excuse.
遊びに来るつもりでいたからたまには家事の真似事でもするかなって思って
It's just, as we get further and further into this, right, I wonder... I assume at some point Sachi's gonna learn that this is Shion, not Mion, right? The same way Keiichi did, right? So, like, what's he gonna think, right? The further we get into this hole, what is he gonna think when he learns this is actually Shion, you know? How... I assuming he does. He could literally never learn, right? I just wonder, you know?
買い物を私が引き受けてきたわけよ
I wonder if he reacts badly. Because I'm thinking, like... Shion... Well, I don't know. I was gonna say it felt like Shion felt the need to do the same thing with Keiichi. But not really, right? She was... I don't know. It's so hard for me to know what Shion thought about Keiichi at all. On that night. When they, like, went on the walk together. I just don't know. I still don't know what her feelings towards Keiichi were at all at that moment, you know?
お分かり
ミオンにしては珍しいね。
Uh-huh.
普段はそういうのめんどくさいって言って嫌がりそうなのに。
そういうのを余計なお世話って言います頭撫でないで
Sachiko-kun seemed to be having fun with how embarrassed I'd get when he patted me. Anyway, I managed to talk my way out of it. He didn't really seem to care about the details. While walking with Sachiko-kun in the shopping district of Kamiishiki, it suddenly occurred to me. Why had I messed up? I'd known Mion would never go grocery shopping. What an amateurish mistake. Did I make that mistake when I was pretending to be Mion? No. I was probably speaking to Shion. I couldn't keep lying to myself. I'd had to just admit. It was simply because I wanted to spend as much time with Sachiko-kun as possible. Of course, right? Obviously. It was easy to see why I was so attracted to him. Like, God, that's just such an interesting line of thought that she has to admit this to herself, right? That she wants to reject the idea of this, you know? Like, because she's been talking so much about this idea of self-dependency, wanting to try and separate herself from this, like, whole system that tells her she's inferior and all of this, right? That's where she gets that idea from, you know? And yet, it's like she has this hesitancy to actually do anything as herself, right? To do things for her own reasons, right? And it's like, you just have to think that that's probably just because that way of thinking has been drilled into her for her entire life, you know? It's just so sad, though, right? I found something intriguing in my boring life, and I didn't have to feel tense because he thought I was somebody else. Etc., etc. Sure, his easygoing nature made him fun to be around, and his habit of petting people on the head was fun, too. Yeah, sure. For these symptoms, I could tell I was embracing the feeling of love. I was just casually enjoying that feeling. It wasn't that I fell in love with him. I was just having fun. I could simply spend some fun time with Sachiko-kun without having to think too much. That can be love, so, like, it's like, I don't know.
ブロッコリーって
Oh god, he doesn't, it's over. He doesn't know either? God. It's like, is this like a genetic thing? Are they colorblind or something? Are they all colorblind? They somehow have white-green colorblindness, so they can't tell which one's broccoli and which one's cauliflower. Like, how, like, God. This is where Sadako went wrong.
緑だっけ黄色だっけ
サトシ君そっちはカリフラワー サトシ君ってひょっとしてキャベツとレタスの区別がつかない
I don't know if I know the difference between lettuce and cabbage. Like, I like never eat cabbage, so like, I don't know.
これでも精一杯区別してるつもり。
Sachiko-kun stared at the heaps of broccoli and cauliflower. After thinking for a while, he reached out for the wrong one. It's so easy. I don't understand the problem they have here. Like, what? What are we doing?
サトシ君の買い物は見ててハラハラしますね。
Oh, it's like when Keiichi went shopping with Sadako.
見てるこっちは楽しいけどさ。
サトコと一緒の時にも迷うんだよ。
Of
ブロッ
course.
コリーとカリフラワーはどっちが何色だっけってね。
あんたら兄弟二人揃って面白すぎです。
Sis had told me that Satoshi was a flaky big brother to his nagging little sister. I hadn't met Sadako, but she must be having a tough time dealing with Satoshi-kun. He stumbles over everything he buys, after all.
それは調理塩。胡椒とか混じってますから、卓上塩とは異なります。
right?
そうなの？ほら、確か理科の実験で塩と胡椒を分離するのを確か。
言
い訳はいいから棚に戻す。
I just had a sad thought about this. I just can't help but wonder. Maybe this is looking at it in too dark of a lens. But like, I don't know. I just wonder, since he has to go do the shopping for his evil guardians that abuse him horribly. I just wonder if like he has this level of stress about like wanting to make sure he buys the right stuff, because I'm sure they're crazy and scream at him if he buys the wrong things, you know. And ironically, that level that stress about it probably makes it like harder to actually pick the correct things, right? Because he's like stressed out, you know.
こっちが普通のお塩ね。で、次は
ミオンがいてくれると
God, but
買い物が楽で助かる。
just how much has to hurt, how infuriating it has to be from her perspective that she has to do this as Mion, you know?
サトシ君、頭良さそうに見えて社会生活に支障ありすぎです。もう少しお勉強した方がいいと思います。
それはひどいな。
It's literally.
あった。これかな。ひゅいひゅい。
What happened?
だからそれは違う。
What did he do wrong?
何でもカゴに放り込む前に値段と何人分かをよく確認する。
He's like Keiichi, he bought the giant thing of what was it, ginger pork bone ramen? My first impression of Satoshi-kun was that he was strong and reliable. But the more I spoke to him, the more surprised I was at how clumsy and unreliable he was. How do I put it? It was hard to leave him alone. He was dangerous on his own. If he wasn't careful, he might start wondering, do you cross the street when the light is red? Or was it green? And get himself run over by a dump truck. Sweat drop. Thank you, thank you.
1780円に
He'll
な
be
り
like
ます。
Hachikuchi.
スタンプカードはお持ちですか？
はい。あります。
Oh god, he forgot it.
あれ、
Oh no.
どこかな。
Uh-oh.
あー、すみません。ちょっと見当たらないんで今度でいいです。
I finished checking out, ignoring Satoshi-kun as he fished through his wallet full of receipts.
ひどいなミオン。スタンプちゃんと押さないと。
Yeah, your precious
あ
points.
んた、夕暮れ時のお買い物ラッシュの時にのんびりと財布を漁ってスタンプを
True, that's actually so annoying.
後ろに
Like,
大勢
come
待
on.
ってるんだから。私たちの後ろで海線山線のおばさま方が
Right.
早くしなさいざま
They're in a
って
rush,
ギラギラ
yeah.
睨んでたの気づいてなかったんですか？あのね、そういう時はレジ前に並んでる時からあらかじめ用意しておくの。
Like, for real, come on.
そうか。
I worked retail as like a teenager for a little bit. Like, come on. Relatable.
いいことを聞いたよ。
ちなみにここでのことだけじゃないですからね。バスに乗る時もそう。サトシ君、バスを降りようとして料金を入れる時、その時になって初めてお財布を開けて小銭をちまちまと探して後ろの人を詰まらせて待たせてるでしょう。
I feel like you could like overanalyze these lines and like think about it in the way that Shion is always thinking so much about like the way she has this impact on other people, you know, like really you know what I mean? Like thinking about, you know, because she's always been taught she's inferior and like what she wants matters less. So of course she always
手に
thinks
料
about
金を入れてるかな。
and like these types of things, you know.
はあ、それはね、すっ
Yeah, exactly,
周
right?
りに迷惑をかけているのです
In some part of her brain, this is what she always thinks about, this idea of being a bother to other people, because that's like how she was raised, right?
そういうのはあらかじめ用意しておくのがマナー
That's how she thinks of herself in some way, I'm sure, right?
わかりました
That was a great delivery on that line.
わかったよ。今日のミオンは怖いな。
Satoshi-kun smiles as if patronizing me. It reminds me of, like, Sadako talking to Keiichi like this, right? Like, giving Keiichi all these, giving Keiichi all these, like, tips and stuff, I don't know. I couldn't believe it. He was definitely the type who made women want to protect him. Sure, he was fine as he was when he had a busybody like me around him. But I couldn't stop worrying whether he was able to function in society without someone like that nearby. Strengthens the connection between Shion and Sadako in that sense, right? The way they both, like the relationship that Shion and Sadako both have with their older sibling, it's very different between them, right? But it strengthens this connection between Shion and Sadako, right? The way Sadako treated Keiichi like this, the way Shion's treating Satoshi like this, right? We got plastic bags and sorted out what we got. Wait, let me read that one again. Okay. Satoshi-kun put a pack of tofu at the bottom of the bag. I slapped his hand and put a milk carton instead.
はいこれで OK
Yeah, you can't, come on, you can't put the tofu on the bottom of the bag and put the milk on top, like God.
これで台所で買い物袋を広げて
Oh,
お母さんに同点されなくて済みますからね
Don't say that.
ありがとう。助かったよ。
Okay.
僕はどうも買い物が苦手でさ。
No, she didn't say aunt, right? She said Okasan. I wonder. I don't know.
買い物だけ正直におっしゃい
Mean! Come on.
嘘冗談
I had realized a few things while I was spending time with him today. He's not just bad at shopping. He's also chronically clumsy. In general, you could call him a slow thinker. I just feel like all of this you could say are symptoms of, That meant, when he stepped into a quarrel with the punks, he must have needed a lot of courage. He might be a simpleton, but he's not stupid. He might be a simpleton, come on. Also, aren't you stupid now, Shion? Isn't that what you were thinking? Like, come on. He's aware of his weaknesses. So, he must have been aware of the danger in that situation. He could have chosen to walk away, even though I was in trouble. But he chose to be a man and stepped in. That was really admirable of him.
偉いサトシ君は頑張ったよ
I'm gonna pet his head instead.
いい子
なんだよ。急に人の頭を。
Exactly.
サトシ君が一人でお買い物ができましたでしょう
Wonder how meaningful that feels for Satoshi too, right? Because he's always the one protecting Sadako, so having someone... I don't know, I just wonder how he feels about this, Because, I'm talking about how affection-starved Shion is, and how meaningful this is for her. Satoshi is so similar to her in a lot of ways, right? I wonder how he feels about it.
なでなでなで
Of course, we don't really know exactly what their relationship with their parents was like, right? I can't remember. I swear they said something that their parents didn't treat them very well either, though, so...
ミオン、僕のことすっごいバカにしてるだろ。
してないよお家一人で帰れるかな道わかる
Yeah.
やっぱりバカにしてる。
Satoshi-kun's sulky face flushed red. He's just too cute. I know, right? God. At that point, I caught a glimpse of a billboard from the corner of my eye. Piano lessons, call XX. Abacus class, junior baseball team, members wanted. It was a posting for the team Satoshi-kun belonged to. It showed the day, time, and place of their next practice. By then, I knew just how flaky he was. I figured he must be just the same when playing baseball. Satoshi-kun realized that I was reading the posting. He looked uncomfortable and walked away.
今サトシ君は思った頼むからミオン野球やってるとこまで来ないでくれよ図星
I wonder...
その
Yeah.
ってのはつまり何さ図星ってことでしょ
How do you know Mion doesn't already watch him play baseball, for one thing? Satoshi-kun became quiet, after mumbling something. It seemed like he couldn't say anything back, since I had been right on the money. Maybe, Satoshi-kun, you're just too cute. I don't think going silent is a good way to dodge the issue. Well, that might have... Can I read? Well, that might have just been the way innocent people like him would react in a situation like that.
じゃあね、サトシくん。暗くなりかけてるか
Maybe.
ら気をつけて
Or
帰ってね。
Mion... Mion already watches him play baseball or something, so that was like a weird thing to say, you know? I don't know. It also makes me wonder if Shion is going to join the team, being like the manager, as Shion or as Mion, right? Assuming Mion isn't already involved in it in some way.
ミオンは一緒に帰らないのかい？
Oh. True.
ひなみさん。
私はもうちょっと寄るとこありますんで。気にしないで
Oh
先に帰
god.
ってください。
This is... You can't keep this up forever. Come on.
僕の買い物を手伝ってもらったんだから、今度は僕が手伝う。
Of course he would.
あ
Hmm.
大丈夫大丈夫。っていうか、サトシくんが何を手伝うおつもりで？
Yeah, you're so helpless,
そ
of
の手伝い
course.
する前に
Yeah.
自分が手伝われなくて買い物できるようになっといてください
In
な。
a way, it kind of has to hurt. She has to say that. She has to reject this. You know what I mean? Ah.
今日のミオンはひときわ意地悪かな。
He seemed to have some pride, at least. He looked a bit upset he was being teased by a girl. But in contrast, I felt very satisfied. As a result, I forgot to keep my guard up. Oh god,
でも
not again.
手伝ってくれてありがとうね。
How many... She can't take multiple in one day.
本当に助かったから。
What was that noise? What was that noise? While wearing a bright smile, Sachiko-kun suddenly started stroking my head again. I know he's teasing me, but I can't reject him. He keeps doing it only because he's realized I won't resist. Oh.
じゃあね。
I just
ミオン
wonder what it looks like from his perspective.
暗くならないうちに用事を済ませてね。また明日学校。
God, if only, right? If only.
また明日学校でね。
God, she must be making their relationship real awkward, huh? Maybe not. I don't know. In fact, I wouldn't see him tomorrow at all. It felt awkward, but I had to settle for that. I had to thank Sis for letting me use her name. It's so frustrating, right? That she feels like she's only being able to do this because of Mion, right? After I separated from him, I found myself giddy and wishing to see him again as soon as possible. I wanted to know more about him. I couldn't wait for my next chance to see him. Actually, maybe there's something I could do. Just like when I obtained my freedom from St. Lucia's, I could choose how to live my life. Whatever, it wasn't that complicated. I just wanted to tease him more. I wanted him to stroke my head more. And, whatever. I already knew the schedule for his baseball team. Sure. Man, is that the end of the subchapter? These ones are way shorter, aren't they? Like, if I hadn't rambled for 30 minutes, this one would have literally been like a 30-minute long subchapter. That's crazy. I wonder if there's like more of them or something? Or if the later ones are just like longer? I don't know. A crumpled diary. Went shopping with a nice young man. A very nice young man. I love the new tip music. It's really, really something, huh? What's it called? Oh, I can't see. I can't hit escape on this screen. A crumpled diary. This yet again. God, it's fucking rough. My aunt finally stopped her hysterical screaming. Today was just like any other day. I can't remember what set her off. Whatever it was, she changed subjects constantly anyway. It didn't matter. She went on past midnight again. Jesus Christ. The urge to sleep was pounding the back of my head. Once Sadako had been able to relax, she fell down on the spot and started sleeping, still clinging to my sleeve. Just torture. Like, I carried Sadako to the bedroom and laid out our futons.
ほら、サトコ。布団が敷けたよ。
How exhausting it has to be.
布団に入りな。
Sadako crawled in like a worm. She stopped moving once she was inside. I wished I could go to bed too, but I couldn't. My aunt asked me to do some chores. Jesus Christ. I had to get toothpaste after school tomorrow. I had to write it down somewhere. I had to make rice for lunch tomorrow. I set the timer. Right, I also had to repile the towels in the bathroom. That was the reason for today's scolding. My aunt will get mad if everything isn't done the way she wants, and I'm sure it's impossible to do it the way she wants. Oh, and there was something else. I was working at the grocery store the next day. Oh, they wanted me to bring an apron. Did we even have an apron in this house? I'd never seen one. My aunt will be sleeping when I go to school, so I won't have time to ask her. What should I do? Since Mion helped me get that job, I don't want to screw it up. Oh, interesting. Okay. In that case, why don't I ask Mion about it at school? She might lend me one. Was there anything else? So him having a job at the grocery store, is it the same store they were at? That's interesting. I was envious of Sadako, because she got to go to bed. Yeah. It was pathetic that I felt that way. Well, I get it. Interesting. Okay. The way for Satoshi that it's become so... He's so, like, numb to it. You know, that it's just so... It's so sad, right? That it's just... I mean, humans are amazing in that way. We can get used to a lot, right? That there's just this horrible, unimaginable, torturous life that he has to go through. Being screamed at until midnight every night. Not getting enough sleep. Dealing with this, you know. That he's able to do it, right? I mean, it builds up. Those feelings build up. And I think we know what's going to happen when it reaches a breaking point, right? But the fact that he's able to stay so put together at all is just amazing. Anyway, we're going to take a break. For me, not for you. Then we're going to the next one. Okay, let's continue. We're here. We are here. Now the question is Mion also going to show up and will this be, you know, this be a whole thing, right? I guess we'll see. Like, did she... Oh god, things are going to be awkward. I can just already tell. Oh. What's up, Eri? What's up?
それは差し入れですか？ありがたいな。さすがは我がチームのマネージャー。
Okay, so she does join as Mion. Obviously, Eri ends up knowing about Shion, of course, right? So... Assuming he doesn't already. He might already know about Shion, right? We know he was like Oryu's doctor, all that stuff, right? We know he's close with Mion, so who knows, I suppose.
別に監督に差し入れたくて買ってきたわけじゃないので、あとさりげなく人を勝手にマネージャーに踏み込まないように。
I guess she hasn't officially joined yet. If she ever even does, right? Who knows?
ミオンがマネージャーだったらいろいろ心強いと思うけどね。やってよ、ミオン。
For real. Satoshi-kun smiled at me in a carefree manner. How can you resist that? I didn't want to become their manager. It'd be tiresome. I'm becoming every week, though, so I'm a quasi-manager already. Oh, she's been coming every week. Okay, so it's been a while. Okay. So it's been a while. She gets her weekly meetups with Satoshi, at least. Okay. Big. Getting some good practice in, huh?
セブンスマートでおせんべいの袋をどれでも3つ買うとですね。
What are we talking about? What are we talking about?
それってつまり3割ってことですか？
Like what does that mean? I guess.
3割打者。サトシ君って結構な高打率打者じゃないの。
I don't know anything about baseball. I have no idea if that's good or not. Couldn't tell you.
打率は数字じゃないよ、ミオン。ここ一番で打てなきゃ意味はないんだから。
Sure, be able to hit the ball when it really counts. That's a thing to say, huh? Considering what he's gonna be doing in not too long.
サトシ君は自分で自分の弱点をよく分かっているようですね。
Sure.
そこまで分かっているなら、あとは練習あるのみですよ。
Eri signaled to the pitcher, who then threw the ball. Satoshi-kun looked calm, following the ball with his eyes. Then he swung, and he missed. Thwack! The ball flew between the first and second bases and landed in the distance. Never mind, good job.
やった
We know Sadako gets good at baseball too.
パチパチパチパチパチ
I clapped, and Satoshi-kun blushed in response. He repositioned his helmet to hide his face.
フリーバッティングや試合が平坦な時はかなり落ち着いたいいバッティングを見せてくれるんですけどね。
Eri smiled compassionately. It seemed that Satoshi-kun really couldn't perform well when it counted. While he was usually good, when everybody expected him to perform, he couldn't. That is an interesting... Huh, okay. I didn't think it was because of nervousness. He just couldn't do it. I think it's a perfect fit for Satoshi-kun's character. He seems calm at first glance, but he's actually slow.
スコアボードとかそういう数字上ではかなりの高アベレージヒッターなのにね。
I wonder. I'm trying to think, like, you could say... Maybe he does struggle under stress because of, like, his experience with, like, abuse, right? But I wonder, like... He's become so numb to it, it seems, right? The abuse, you know? You would think... I wonder how it translates, like, to this kind of thing. Like, in everyday life, you know?
本番に弱いってのは致命的かも。そんなことだからこないだの浮田ジャガーとの試合でもここ一番で凡退するんですよ。
Ukita Jaguars, huh?
うるさいな。気にしてるんだから黙っててくれよ。
あそこで打てればかなり美味しい見せ場だったんですけどね。
You're gonna have to play against Kamida-kun.
残念です。
A hit could have put the offense into the lead, or at least given them an extension. That was when Sachi-kun came up to bat. Erie wanted him to live up to everybody's expectations. But statistically, that wasn't likely to happen. Yet Erie insisted on giving him a chance, in spite of the fact that all the team members had suggested a pinch hitter.
ああもうあそこで打てれば完璧なのにな。どうしてダメなんですか？どうしてああいう時に打てないんですか？
仕方
He
ない
did his
よ。
best, yeah, come on.
僕がああいう時弱いの本当だし。
Yeah, I wonder.
僕だって代打を出してくれた方が試合に勝てるかなって思ったし。
Doubtful of himself, just like Shion is.
試合に勝つかじゃなくてサトシ君が勝つかどうかが問題なんです。
Can't do it when it really matters. Seems like another thing that might be a theme, right? Can't perform when it really matters, maybe? When it really matters. I wonder if there's a way we can apply that to Shion as well. Not sure yet.
ああもうなんで当の本人にここまで闘争心がないのかな。普通は逆でしょ。代打に変えられそうなところをここは俺に打たせてくださいって食ってかかるとこでしょ。
It's like because of the lack of confidence, right? That probably hurt his performance,
自
right?
分から代打を出してほしいなんて言い出すなんて。
Yeah.
ああもうなんでここまで闘争心がないのかな。
I don't know, I wonder, huh? Like thinking about that in relation to like him being so protective of Sadako, right? Like him doing that all the time. Him wanting to give it away and have a pinch hitter do it instead. I don't know. It's
それ
interesting.
は私も普段から言ってるんですけどね。まあその辺がサトシ君のいいところではあるんですがね。
普段は紳士でも試合には鬼になる。
Sure.
男にはそういう二面性があっても私はいいと思います。とにかくサトシ君には鬼がない。
Like what? I suppose needs to let his demon out. Well, he's going to. He's going to.
たまにはご先祖の鬼の血を思い出してくださいよね。
I wonder what he thinks about that.
聞いてますサトシ君。
聞いてるよ。
Uh-huh.
よくわかんないけど、その
わかんないけどってサトシ君の話をしてるんですよ。それを
Oh god, not again. Uh-oh. He has such an easy way to shut her down, you know? It's like whenever she's bothering him, he can just do this. Like, what's she gonna do, right? Sachi-kun suddenly started stroking my head. He looked delighted for some reason. A blush immediately spread across my face. I didn't know how to
ミオン
respond.
は僕のためを思って言ってくれてるんだよね。ありがとう。僕は頑張る。
Do your best.
サトシ君そういうことしてごまかさないでください。
He is truly
ご
helpless.
まかしてなんかないよ。嬉しいだけだよ。
I couldn't resist his hand. I couldn't help mumbling like he does. Sachi-kun ran back to the field, leaving me right as a beat.
頭撫でられるの弱いんですか？
Yes, very much so.
監督が撫でてきたら関節決めます。
Well, yeah, not
覚悟
from
の方よろしく
Satoshi.
です。
Yes, not from you, Yuri.
もうずるいな。じゃあ全員集合。
Oh god, I am suddenly tired. It is late.
今日は出席もいいことですから人数を分けて紅白戦をやってみましょう。
Sounds good. The Hinamizawa fighters are sort of a lazy team. The members gather simply to enjoy playing baseball, not to fight for victory. The Okonomiya Titans use the field too, but they practice on a different day of the week. They always train hard using dumbbells and stuff. Our team split into two groups and started a match, retaining their loose atmosphere.
じゃあ私は記録でもやるかな。
Big.
監督どっかに鉛筆ないですか？
いつもすみませんね。はいこれお願いしますね。
I took the pencil and the clipboard. I didn't know how to differentiate between recording hits and errors at first, but by now I was used to it.
頑張ってサトシくん
Oh god, you're gonna make him
あまり
nervous.
応援すると
Yeah,
また
exactly.
打てなくなっちゃいますねほどほどに頑張れ
Exactly, yeah. Do like decently.
それはそれでひどいな
That might be even worse, honestly.
頑張れ
Time passed slowly that Sunday. Huge white clouds appeared in the sky. They made me feel healthy. Humans are born to be active under the sun. One of the parents was acting as umpire today, so Erie sat on the bench with me. He shouted words of encouragement to the kids when they ran to their positions. Any other baseball coach would constantly berate them, but he was much more generous, like a kindergarten teacher. He let the kids have fun while watching over them. To other baseball players, it might look a little naive.
それでもあの程度の練習量でみんなこれだけの動きができるんだから
Do they
驚き
do
ですよね
very well?
ひなみ沢の子はみんな普段から
True, true.
元気に
They're not like
遊び回ってますからね
They're not the big city type.
運動量は街のことは比べ物にならないんですよ変なフォームで固めてしまうより遊び感覚の方が伸びるんです
おお見事に沖宮タイタンズとは正反対の考え方ですねあちらの監督と対立するのわかる気がします
Well, they raised a pro, didn't they? I mean, they got Kameda-kun out of that team, so come on.
試合は勝つためにするものですからね
Sure.
勝利至上主義は決して間違いじゃないです
Prioritizing victory. It's an interesting thing, prioritizing victory. For Shion, that is an interesting idea. Because she doesn't really prioritize, like, victory. You know what I mean? Whatever you can imagine victory being. In terms of, like, her social standing, like, with the Sonozakis, that kind of thing, right?
みんなで団結して共通の目標を目指すのは、とてもまあうちはその目標がたまたま勝利じゃないってだけのことです
Victory. The Hinamizawa Fighters and the Okonomiya Titans had been rivals for a long time. Both teams shared the same baseball field, for one thing. And originally, there was only one team, but the people living in Hinamizawa left and made their own. Anyhow, we were rivals. The Okonomiya Titans were strictly about winning, and the Hinamizawa Fighters were just about having fun. Surprisingly, our scores weren't that different. Probably makes sense, honestly, yeah. Which meant our team had something they didn't. Even though I couldn't put it into words, I knew what made that happen. I know, right? I feel like I get it.
赤組さんも頑張ってください2点差なんかひっくり返せちゃいますよ白組も油断なくしっかり
Which team is Sachi on? Damn, she's a good manager, huh? Still, some parents would criticize her coach for being too lenient. But still others would strongly agree with him. Which side would I take? The latter? I couldn't really say for sure. The reason for this was that Erie had an obnoxious habit of sexual harassment. Thank you. In particular, he had a fascination with maids, but I should talk about that some other time. But yeah, please do. Let's leave it for, like, way in the future. How about that? Sachi-kun let the ball pass twice to see its trajectory, then hit it on the third pitch and ran to first base.
サトシくん打った落ち着いてればさすがですよね
最初はちょっと素振りしただけで、すぐバテてたんですけ
There
どね
really is like the nerves like that, right? Yeah. Huh. Because I guess probably a large part of it is he is affected by it. By the nerves, probably partially again because of, his home life, right? And I wonder if he's just able to put on such a strong face because of Sadako, you know?
それを思えば本当に上達したものです
サトシくんって文系って感じの人ですよね
Yeah, surprisingly likes baseball,
よ
huh?
くその彼が野球をやろうなんて思ったものですね
Does Erie have any idea? I wonder. All the other kids who joined the baseball team loved baseball. Or I wonder, right? Because again, it's like my theory about Erie is like he has this adjacency to what's going on with the shit that makes you go crazy. Because like the vaccine. I don't know how much he actually knows. I don't know if the vaccine is actually a cure. Because that would... If the vaccine somehow cures the shit that makes you go crazy, that means Erie knows like a lot about what's going on. The vaccine could just be like... Or the syringe, I guess not really a vaccine. The syringe could just be, like, a sedative or something, right? For the people going crazy, you know? I wonder if he's going to develop all of this, like, because of what happens with Satoshi soon? If Satoshi killing his aunt is going to have something to do with him going crazy, right? Maybe. Or if he already is, you know? All the other kids who joined the baseball team loved baseball. They'd go out to play in the fields outside of practice. That's why they all had an aptitude for it. But Sis never said that Satoshi-kun exercises intensively in school or anywhere else. He only likes to read. That's why I didn't understand why he started playing for this team to begin with.
それはですね。
Ah, okay.
また
へえ
Interesting. Oh, maybe.
監督が自らスカウトしたんですか？サトシ君に何かすごい素質があるのを見抜いて？
I wonder if it's just to keep him out of the house as much as possible.
あ、すみません。麦茶を一杯もらってもいいですか？
Same reason, right, that they made the club for Sadako, essentially, right? Yeah.
あ、どうも。
Eri asked for tea in a suspicious manner. Very, very suspicious. Well, he constantly joked around. I knew he was actually a very mature person. I assumed he was trying to evade my
何
question.
か訳ありなんですか？
You're merciless. Eri pretended he didn't hear me, but I pressed him on it. In response, he shrugged and began answering the question.
園崎さんなら、あ
Yeah.
るいは想像がつくんじゃないか
Yeah. What would be Mion Sonozaki's guess? Of course, she can't answer it herself, obviously. I quickly searched through the data I had on Satoshi-kun. I came up with Satoshi-kun's family circumstances. He lost his parents in an accident a year ago. Since then, he's been having a tough time at his uncle's home. Yeah.
じゃあ監督はサトシ君の鬱憤とか
But
そういうのを解消
venting.
させてあげようと思ってこのチームに？
スポーツはいいですよ。
Maybe.
程よく体を動かして、
Sure.
汗
Just
をかくことは、ス
something to
トレ
distract
スの
him
発散になります。
at large, I suppose, right?
また熱中することによって、わずかな間でも家庭のことを忘れられるなら、それは十分な気分転換になりますしね。
I wonder what Sadako does, though, during these times, right? Because, like, I assume Sachi wouldn't want to leave Sadako alone at home, ever, right?
ほらサトシ君ってぼんやりしてるというか、のほほんとしてるというか、そういうところあるじゃないですか。
Which is also kind of sad.
やっぱり相当ストレスあるんですか？
Mm-hmm. I knew Sachi-kun must be suffering, even though he didn't look like it. But Mion Sonozaki never pays attention to things like that, and I had to act like she does.
おじさんに引き取られて少ししてから、サトシ君がだいぶ体調を崩しましてね。
Okay.
いろんな症状を訴えるんですが、いくら調べても
Interesting.
原因がはっきりしないんですよ。
Okay. Wonder what the symptoms were. Sachi-kun often got sick after he was taken into his uncle's custody. That doesn't sound good. He suffered from fatigue and migraines. He suffered from a lack of energy and sleeplessness. Is it just the effect of the abuse, right? Him not getting enough sleep, him not, just all of that stuff, right? The coach, Dr. Erie, soon realized Sachi-kun was suffering from a psychological disorder. Most of the people in Hinamizawa knew how bad Sachi-kun's environment was. It was natural for him to become sick because he entered the bad environment right after his parents' death, yeah.
サトシ君は感情の爆発ができないタイプなんですよ。泣いたりとか怒ったりとか、そういう感情が人一倍苦手なんです。
Not much like Shion, in a lot of ways, right? Really.
確かにサトシ君が泣いたりとか怒ったりってのはあまり想像つかないですね。
Again, it's just interesting. I just feel like Shion. Maybe it's because Shion's case, again, it's like the abuse is different, right? The situation they experience from their family is different. Shion just feels so much further along on this process of like self-deception about her own feelings. She like accepts it more, you know what I mean? Like she doesn't fight against it at all, like she tells herself she's okay with it, all of this, you know what I mean?
サトシ君のお母さんが再婚を重ねてるのはご存知で？
We talked about that in chapter 3 with like Sadako's attitude towards her stepfather.
まあ少しは。
Sachi's-kun mother had married a number of men over the years. That meant Sachi-kun had several stepfathers. I didn't really think about that back in chapter 3, that he was there too, of course, right? He had to deal with strangers coming into his home multiple times, so he was forced to be mature, yeah.
サトシ君は精神的に早熟なんです。本人は自覚していないでしょうね。
Interesting. Is he really?
泣いたり笑ったり、ダダをこねたり。
Yeah.
そういう時代を
Exactly. Right, yeah. Forced to grow up so fast.
大人になっちゃったんです。
To protect Sadako, if nothing else, right?
監
Never
督の言い
had
方だと
good
大人ってのが必ずしもいいようには聞こえないですね。
never had good parental figures, really.
子供は子供らしく過ごすことで成長していくようにできているんです。それを無理に大人にしたら
Just
やっぱ
like
りいいことはないですよ。
just like Shion, right? The way that she is now forced into this situation where she feels like she needs to be self-sufficient. She doesn't have anyone to rely on. Yeah, yeah. Not only was Sadako's current relationship with her aunt conspicuously terrible, I heard that her relationships with her previous stepfathers weren't good either. Yeah, no kidding. Sadako always caused problems, and Sachi-kun would always step in to protect her. I don't know if that's really a fair way to put
だ
it.
から、サトシ君の体に変調が出たのは、そういうことに体が耐えかねた SOS じゃないかって思ったんです。
But again, this line is interesting. Her thinking about Sadako in this way, because there are these clear parallels between Shion and Sadako, right? And Satoshi and Mion, you know? The difference between how Satoshi treats Sadako and how Mion treats Shion. And then, like, you know, I just think it would be interesting to see what Shion thinks about Sadako, right? Again, it's like we get this vibe that she certainly has some bad thoughts about Sadako in a way, right? Like what she said in Chapter 2 about Sadako. So, I wonder. Because again, it's going to be like, it's interesting. Because I guess even if Shion isn't directly think of it in that way, I feel like there's no way she can't in some way project herself onto Sadako in some sense, right? That however she's going to treat Sadako and however she's going to think about Sadako in this way, it's going to say something about the way she thinks about herself, right? Like, for sure. That's why Iri invited Satoshi-kun onto the baseball team. He told Satoshi that he needed a new member, or something like that.
初めは渋ってましたけど
Of
ね。
course.
彼と診療の際にいろいろとお話しするうちに少しずつ打ち解けていきましてね。
I'm gonna write that down. About Sadako, I just want to make sure I'm sure I won't forget it, but I just want to make sure.
ちょっと見学だけにでも来てみるといい。ちょっとバットを持ってみるといい。なんて感じで少しずつ誘っていったんですよ。
Again, it's so interesting that this is so different than what it felt like what Rena told us in Onikachi, what Rena told Keiichi in Onikachi about Sadashi getting into baseball, right? Such a different context here, you know? Sports worked excellently for Satoshi-kun. His health quickly improved, and he started to become interested in baseball. He practiced batting. He was soon able to swing beautifully, and he learned how to see the trajectory of the ball.
なんかわかるな。サトシ君ってコツコツタイプですからね。
See the trajectory of the
How
ball.
to Baseball なんて本をしおり挟みながら読んでる風景が想像できます。
Just like Araragi and Kizu.
それであれよあれよという間に3割打者なんです。本当によく頑張りました。これでピンチの時にも打てれば完璧なんですけどね。
So it's like immediately since Shion and Satoshi are also so similar. I just wonder if there's something like that for Shion. I don't know, huh?
サトシ君と監督って仲いいんですか？
Seems like it. Yeah, certainly.
悪くはないと思ってますよ。悩みとかそういうのを打ち明けてくれたということは私を信頼してくれたからだと思ってます。
I felt a bit jealous of how confidently Iri said that. Well, Satoshi-kun and I were friends. We weren't so close that we opened up to each other like that. And worse than that, you weren't even friends with him as Shion. You were friends with him as Mion, right? But again, it's like Shion has such a messed up sense of like self-identity and all of that and all this stuff about like her and Mion that I wonder if she even like consciously thinks of it in that way, you know? Like, I don't know. I think her sense of like self versus like this whole Mion-Shion business, it's so complicated, you know?
あれ？嫉妬してます？
何に？
Yeah, because from his perspective, I'm sure Mion and Satoshi seem so close, you know? Taken aback, I blushed. Iri started laughing at
園
me.
崎さんもサトシ君の相談相手になってあげてください。
Interesting how he keeps calling her Sonozaki-san, not Mion, right? I wonder.
まあ、慣れるなら慣れたらいいかななんて。で、
I didn't know what I was saying.
サトシ君ですね。
Mhm.
最近ま
Oh,
た少し体調を崩してるみたいなんです。
interesting, yeah. Oh, God. Whack. The ball flew to the left. I wonder if that has anything to do with, you know, symptoms of the shit that makes you go crazy, or... I wonder. The ball flew to the left. But the left fielder managed to catch it. It seemed that the relationship between Sadako and her aunt had gotten worse lately. It was obvious his sickness had something to do with that.
おばさんがかなり大人げないいじめ方をしているらしいんです。
Right, because obviously, if my theory about the shit that makes you go crazy, it being like triggered somehow by like this like extreme emotions and like amplifying that, you know, obviously Satoshi's situation is like very much fit for that, right?
さとこちゃん、本当にかわいそうなくらいにボロボロになって。
Yeah.
何しろ聞いた話では。
で、それをかばうサトシ君も
Of course.
ボロボロになっているということですね。
Yeah. I wasn't interested in Sadako, so I switched the subject back to Satoshi-kun. Of course, right? No, it makes so much sense that she would say that, right? Because Sadako is her. Right? Like, no, yeah. I didn't know much about Sadako. I knew she was a big part of Satoshi-kun's life, but I'd never been interested in her until today. Of course, right? Right. She must have been building up self-esteem and taking care of her unreliable brother. That was all I knew about her. But considering Satoshi-kun's personality, even that goofiness of his might have been an act. Maybe he was trying to make her feel good about herself by letting her take care of him. Interesting. If only unconsciously. When he's alone, he's surprisingly strong. I realized that only recently. So, I can't help but think that his whole life is constantly affected by Sadako. Interesting. Satoshi-kun managed to get along with his stepfathers, even though he experienced some stress. Such an interesting thing to think. Because again, it's like, okay, Satoshi is Mion, Sadako is Shion. Right? Like, they're related, there's such clear parallels between them, right? So, like, she's thinking about how Satoshi's whole life is so affected by Sadako, right? She keeps emphasizing she doesn't care about Sadako at all, right? She's not interested in her, you know? Which makes sense, because just like the position that she takes in her relationship with Mion, which is this instant deference to her, trying to convince herself that she accepts her place, that she doesn't matter as much as Mion, essentially, right? She doesn't say it like that, but that's essentially what the conclusion is, right? She's essentially applying that to Sadako too, right? That Satoshi is like the, you know, she cares about Satoshi more, right? The same way Mion matters more than she does, right? Even if she's not directly thinking of it in that way, I think that's where it comes from, you know? So, her thinking about how his whole life is constantly affected by Sadako is interesting, right? Because then if this analogy holds, and we would want to think, okay, so in some way Mion's life constantly being affected by Shion, right? And maybe that makes sense, right? Because Shion has been always conditioned to think of herself, assumedly, as some kind of burden, as some kind of, you know, the inferior one, all of this, right? That Mion's more important, all of that stuff, you know? So the same way she thinks of herself, in some corner of her mind at least, even if she tries to convince herself otherwise, that she is like a, you know, that she's inferior to Mion, that she's just the worst sister who should get pushed away, she's going to apply that to Sadako and Satoshi's relationship too, right? That's why she's going to think of Sadako in this way, you know? Yeah. Satoshi-kun managed to get along with his stepfathers, even though he experienced some stress. He was even getting along with his aunt. But in order to protect Sadako, he always had to step in and suffer. Right. I didn't really know anything about Sadako, but I had to admit, I felt hostile toward her. Exactly, right? Exactly. Because, like, what she's thinking, right, is about how, with her relationship with Mion, right, she wants to think that, like, what she's doing with Mion, like, accepting her place in this way, right, deciding to just be like, you know, that's just how the relationship is, and accepting her place. Of course she's going to have, like, this weird, yeah, like, these negative feelings towards Sadako. I wonder if she even understands why. Right? Because Sadako isn't doing what she's doing, right? Or maybe it's not that Sadako isn't doing what she's doing, but also that Satoshi is willing to step in for her, and Mion isn't, you know? Again, I'm not really blaming Mion, I'm just working through the thought process, right? So it makes so much sense that she would have, like, this hostile feeling toward her, you know? Even if I wonder if she doesn't even get it, you know, she doesn't know why, right? Both because Satoshi is willing to put himself on the line for her, unlike Mion and Shion's relationship, right? Partially because of Shion's own attitude, you know? And the fact that Shion herself so readily accepted, maybe not readily, right? But by this point, has accepted her position in the Sonozaki family, right? And she just thinks that Sadako should just, like, do the same thing, right? That she shouldn't make herself such a bother for Satoshi. The same way Shion doesn't do that for Mion, right? I felt jealous because she was monopolizing him. And that, right? And the lip, sure, right.
おばさんのいじめがだいぶエスカレートしてるみたいです。サトシ君の体調不良も それに比例しているんでしょう
Yeah,
ね。
it's gonna be so... Like, she's going to want to blame Sadako for this, right? Because that's how she thinks of herself in her relationship. Yeah. Iri heaved a sigh. As he said, Sachi-kun's been absent a few times lately. He seemed a bit tired, too. Obviously, like, and the reason why that's interesting is because just like Shion's attitude about the Sonozaki family, the thing that has forced her into the position she's in now, that's like an immovable wall for her, right? The idea of changing the ways of the Sonozakis is like impossible, right? She's accepted that she can't do that she just is the inferior, that's how her family's going to view her, that's it, right? So of course she would blame Sadako and not blame their evil parents for abusing them, right? Because just like that, she's going to apply that to this situation as well. That it's just like a fact of nature that their evil parents are abusing them, right? Or their aunt and uncle, I suppose, right? And not think about it in that way, right? Because she's applying the same logic that she uses for like her situation with the Sonozakis, right? To their parents and that abuse, you know. He looked normal when he was around everyone else, but he looked a bit depressed when he was alone.
監督はストレスに押しつぶされそうなサトシ君を救うため野球に誘ったんですよね。
ええ、そのつもりでした。
こうして野球をやっている今、
Yeah.
またストレスに押しつぶされそうになっているサト
Yeah,
シ君
what
に
do we do?
今度は何を誘えばいいんですか。
I mean, we gotta kill his aunt. That's not what he was gonna say. But that is what's gonna happen, so we're off. Not that easy, unfortunately.
どうすればいいん
Yeah,
でしょうね。
no easy solution to that. Iri smiled powerlessly, because obviously it's like the real answer would be to have them stop abusing the children, right? But we can't do that. It's interesting how different of an attitude Shion has about this compared to, like, Keiichi in Chapter 3, you know? Because obviously Keiichi was focused on the real problem there, which was them being abused and how terrible that was, right? Shion's not thinking of it through that lens, for understandable reasons, because of her own experience, right? Iri smiled powerlessly, right? And that word, yet again, being powerless, you know, that whole thing in Chapter 3, right? I couldn't help but help feeling a bit disappointed about that, because Sachi-kun put his trust in him.
内緒にしてくださいよ。実はですね、チームを抜けたいって、
Oh.
そう漏らすんですよ。
I wonder if it's for Sadako's sake for some reason, right?
どうして。
疲れるから
I
だそうです。
know, that's an
という
excuse.
のは表向き。
But
さとこちゃんと一緒にいる時間を
yeah,
増やしてあげるためじゃないかと。
what is
思って
Shion
ます
gonna think about that?
サトシ君は野球をしていながら
Exactly, right?
さとこちゃんがお
Yeah,
ばさんにい
yeah.
じめられているかもしれない。
And that's why I was surprised he joined in the first place, because I would imagine he wouldn't want Sadako to be alone in the house, right?
その時、さとこちゃんのそばにいられないことが
Yeah.
兄として
Which
辛い
obviously
と
it's so unfair, right? It's
そ
so...
う思っているのかもしれま
It's
せん。
awful that their situation is like that, right? But I just know how Shion's gonna take that. I was left speechless for a while. Sadako again. Sadako. Why did Sachi-kun have to sacrifice so much for her? Just by ignoring her, his stress would melt away. Exactly, right? Just let yourself be ignored, right? That's the position she has taken, right? Of course, I knew he couldn't do that. If that were the case, then the blame lay with his little sister. I knew how badly she'd been treated. But that only happened because she made things worse for herself. Interesting, right? So she doesn't think of that as of herself then, right? Huh. It was her fault that she couldn't establish a decent relationship with her aunt. Yeah. I'm sure we don't know much about the dynamic between Shion and her family, but I'm sure that she imagines that this is like what she has done, right? Like, again, obviously the things she's thinking are like crazy right now. But again, we have to think, like, what she's thinking right now, we have to think of it through the perspective of Shion herself also being a victim, right? She is putting herself in Sadako's shoes. She's projecting herself onto Sadako, right? And like, because she has dealt with like similar things, you know. And she's, I mean, like, she lost to it essentially, right? She, you know, she tells herself she's fine and that she accepts it, right? But essentially, she's just undergoing the abuse and just, you know, she just lost to it, right? Like, yeah. And she just thinks that Sadako should do the same thing, right? If Sadako were more mature, then Sachi-kun, like Satoshi-kun, her home life wouldn't have gotten so bad. The idea of maturity yet again, right? It's like what? So she thinks of her own situation as mature in some way, right? Like the stance that she has taken towards the abuse that she herself faces, you know? Satoshi-kun wouldn't have to suffer those indirect blows. Huh. Because it's interesting, right? Because it's both she cares about Satoshi a lot as a person, right? But it's also in the way that I think she applies like her relationship with her older sister to Sadako and Satoshi, right? So of course she would think that Sadako should show this deference to Satoshi, right? In the meantime, the baseball team's practice match had become one-sided. It wasn't even worth watching anymore. The members of the losing team were just goofing off. The sky had turned cloudy too. It was depressing. It didn't look like it'd rain soon, though. The gray sky hadn't brought along any cool air. It just felt disgusting. Iri became quiet. He was looking down around his feet. Maybe Eureka's happy, though, about the weather. I, meanwhile, just stared at Satoshi-kun. To me, he didn't look active anymore. He was once able to enjoy playing baseball, and he felt fine. But he got sick again, just because the relationship between Sadako and her aunt had deteriorated, and how unfair that must seem, right? Yeah. I can't help but say it.
サトシ君をどうこうするって
Oh.
サトコをどうこうする方が先決では
So here's the thing, right? Shion's line of logic about blaming Sadako for this is insane, right? It's like, I mean, it's insane from like a normal person's perspective, right? From her perspective, she is like an abuse victim, right? She has like this coping line of logic for it that she applies to herself as well, right? So that's how she has arrived at like this conclusion that it's somehow Sadako's fault, right? Because she applies that to herself too. So I wonder how Iri is going to take this. What is Iri going to take from what Shion is saying here, right? Like, because he isn't obviously no normal person. I shouldn't say normal person. Shion's normal, just you know what I mean, right? Like, someone who doesn't have the same mentality as Shion about all of this is never going to go down that line of thought she just did. So, like, what is Iri going to think about this? It was just a murmur, but Iri definitely caught it. Obviously, he's not going to think she means, like, we should get Sadako to toughen up, and it's, you know...
それは
Exactly.
どういう意味ですか
Yeah.
園崎さん。
別に難しい話じゃないです
She's actually going to open up about
サ
it
トコ
then.
がしっかりしてくれれば
Right.
サトシ君に迷惑をかけることもない
That's what she thinks about herself.
サトコがそもそもの原因であるってことが言いたいだけです
God, it's just so... it's crazy she would say that to someone. But it shows how messed up she is, right? How messed up she is by what the Sonozakis did to her, right? That it's just this extreme coping mechanism she has. This victim blaming, both for Sadako and for herself, right? Like, I guess she doesn't blame herself because she thinks she's handling it correctly. She thinks she's being strong, right? By accepting it.
そんなこと
Yeah. Yeah.
でしょだってサトコがトラブルからサトシ君はそのトラブルに介入して矢面に立たなければならないんでし
She
ょ
justifies the abuse like that, right? She must do that for herself, too. That's the sad
で
thing.
その結果本当は買わなくて済んだおばの喧嘩まで買ってるわけでしょ
Sachiko never got scared of any trouble. No matter how formidable the enemy, he'd bravely stand up to protect the weak. I knew that because I could vividly imagine it, right? It's like she thinks almost that if like she was doing that, right? If it makes you think, it makes you wonder, like I guess we don't know what their childhood was like. I wonder if Mion ever did try standing up for Shion, right? Actually, didn't they say that? Actually, didn't they literally say that earlier? That when they were younger, Mion did try doing that a little bit? Or am I making that up? A couple chapters ago. In like the second chapter, right? Maybe they did, and that would make so much more sense. I can't believe I forgot that line if they did say that. Fuck. But yeah, right, like of course, it's, no, it makes so much sense. Right. Okay. And of course she can vividly imagine it. Not just for her own experiences with Satoshi, but also like being Sadako. Whenever their aunt chid Sadako, Satoshi-kun steps in to protect her. Their aunt probably didn't like it. Though Satoshi-kun didn't have to fight, the aunt would attack him anyway. The fight would then be between the aunt and him. Sadako might then tease the aunt by sticking out her tongue, hiding behind his back, and pretending to be scared. It's not like that, unfortunately. But that's how she would think about herself, right, I'm sure. She'd never think about how deeply he was being hurt. Yeah, because she... God, no, the sad thing, like, the horribly sad thing about all of this, about the way she views Sadako here, is it shows the way she thinks about, like, accepting her own abuse from, like, the Sonozakis, right? Accepting, like, this horrible treatment that her family gives her, and that, like, she thinks it would be like this if she tried to do anything to fight back against it, right? That she thinks it would be like this, that she would be hurting Mion pointlessly if she tried to fight back, right? That if Mion tried to step in and do anything for her, it would just be this giant burden that she's putting on her, right? That she just needs to accept this treatment, and, like, oh my god. That it's that because she was taught her whole life that Mion was more important than her, that she needs to always put, this idea of hurting Mion in some way over her own feelings, right? And she thinks, of course, that Sadako should do the same thing. Because of Sadako, Sachi-kun had become cornered and stressed.
園崎さん
That's...
あなたがそんな言い方をする人だったと
Man.
あなたは聡子ちゃんのお友達でしょお姉さん的な立場でしょ普段も学校で聡子ちゃんを慰めたり励ましたりしてるものだと思ってました
It's just so sad. It's so sad because it would be so hard to help Shion with this too, right? To change her attitude about this. Because in order to change Shion's attitude about this, it's just so... This is like a coping mechanism for it, right? Is to think of it in this way. To think that she's doing like this noble, strong thing. To act like this, right? This permanent inferiority, right? This permanent deference.
なのにそんな言い方をするなんて正直驚いています
Eri looked at me suspiciously. I could tell what he was thinking about me. I'd said too much. Mion Sonozaki and Sadako Hojo were friends. They're close, so Mion should have been encouraging her after the situation at home got tougher. That's what Mion was supposed to do. And she immediately thinks of it in the context of Mion. Yeah, it's like, and she immediately goes to, like, further enforcing this inferiority in a way by thinking that she should be doing what Mion would do, right? Yeah. I had totally forgotten about that, and spoken as myself. It's only natural that Eri would give me a suspicious look. He might end up changing his impression of Mion Sonozaki entirely, and that's unacceptable, right? That's almost like doing what she was saying up here, right? Like making it harder for Satoshi, but she's making it harder for Mion by acting this way, so she has to... Yeah. I'd have to apologize to her about this, and ask her to put things right. Exactly, she's doing the exact same thing. Oh my god. Of course, right. I totally messed up. Even so, I didn't think I'd said anything wrong. I'd objectively looked at the situation and made a modest proposal. A modest proposal, right. Because that's how she feels. To be honest, I was simply afraid that he might leave the team. I couldn't go to the school in Hinamizawa, so the baseball field was the only place where I could see him. I could even say that he was my reason for living. Her reason for living? And I mean, I understand that, right? Like, for sure. That's right, I was in love with him. But I wasn't going to tell him how I felt, for I was satisfied just by being by his side. Because I guess her inferiority and this deference to other people and their feelings and everything, it even extends to this, right? Like, I imagine even this, she can't, she would never be able to seriously pursue a relationship with him, because she would have to do it as Shion, and she can't do that, right? I certainly couldn't ask for anything more. After all, I couldn't reveal my true identity. I did pretend to be Mion in order to live in Okonomiya. Get mad about that! Get mad about that! Like, please! Like, come on! Like, I just wish she would, right? I guess we see what happens when she gets mad about it. She kills everyone in Chapter 2, right? And maybe that's going too far, but, like, come on, right? Like, please. But it would be so hard. It would be so hard, right? It would be turning her back on everything the way she's lived for so long, right? Like, because if she got mad about it now, think about how she would have to change her attitude about everything, And that would just be so hard. That would be fighting the system that has beaten her down and made her act like this, Like, I thought that maybe I should leave Okonomiya in order to be free, but then you'd be leaving Satoshi. But that's stupid. Or that would be giving up, I guess. No matter how tough my life might be, I'd prefer to be here, with Satoshi-kun stroking my head every now and then. Why did I love him that much? I read about it in some manga once. And, like, that's the sad thing, right? It's like, she doesn't want to leave Okonomiya, right? that'd be giving up Satoshi, but also that would be, like, admitting defeat in some way, right? Like, in the first chapter, she thought about how she doesn't want to admit defeat in a way, basically, to Oryu by, like, fleeing completely, not living in her hometown, you know? So it's like she has this sad perception that somehow, despite her attitude and the way she acts about all of this, that she hasn't lost already, right? Like, she isn't living at all. She already has given up, you know? Like, she isn't... I read about it in some manga once. You don't need a reason to be in love. Exactly. Right. Skihi moment. I was surprised at myself for being like this. I breathed out slowly, then held my breath. She said that out loud, huh? Did Hirvi hear? I breathed out slowly, then held my breath, trying to slow my throbbing heart. I felt a bit calmer. At that point, a clearer thought came into my head. I want to be with Satoshi-kun. So, I want him to stay on the team. Oh god, what are you gonna do? So, you want to do something about Sadako? So, I want to get rid of his concerns and his stress. So what? So, what can I do to achieve all that? My head started to cool down as I heard the umpire shout. It's so telling, right? Because it's almost like, it's so much like Chapter 3 from Keiichi's perspective. He was so focused on Teppei. Obviously, the real issue here is he wanted to fucking kill Teppei, of course. Because fuck Teppei, right? For abusing Sadako, right? The problem is Shion thinks of the abuse as like this inevitable fact of the world, the same way she accepts the Sonozaki, the power structure that oppresses her in this case, right? That abuses her, right? So of course she's going to blame Sadako. She's going to think it's Sadako's fault, you know? So she's going to want to do something about Sadako instead, right? My head started to cool down as I heard the umpire shout. Fuck. Then what's she gonna do? What is she gonna do to Sadako? Fuck, man. Oh, God. Shion's my favorite character. She just has to be, right? Like, this is so good. Some days I see him, some days I don't. A clear sky gets cloudy, and rain will always stop eventually. I thought his absence was just like that, but he was actually on the verge of breakdown. Notebook page 19. A clear sky gets cloudy. The rainy season was just around the corner, and the air had become so humid that my shirt stuck to my skin. It had been a few weeks since Satoshi-kun stopped showing up for baseball practice. Oh, fuck. I wonder when Irie's gonna learn the truth that this is Shion. I looked for him as soon as I arrived at the field. He's not here yet. Did I get here too early? I want to see him playing in the field right when I get here. I'd started arriving late because of those feelings. However, he wasn't here today either. I didn't even bother hiding my disappointment anymore. Everybody knew by now how I felt. The team members from Mion's class came over to try and console me, but I shooed them away. Yeah, she doesn't know any of them. Even Irie couldn't comfort me. I was aware that he, too, knew why I was like this. Yeah.
ほら、今日は沖宮タイタンズさんと打ち合わせをする日じゃないですか。マネージャーの園崎さんにも同席してほしかったんですがね。
私を勝手にマネージャーにしないでください。私、
Sure.
マネージャーだったつもりは
I guess.
ないんですから。
Never agreed to be one. It is interesting, that, like, avoidance of responsibility, almost, you know? Irie looked down, not knowing what to say.
わかりました。元気が回復したらまた手伝ってくださいね。
もう来ないかもです。
Oh,
マネージャーが必要なら、
yeah, of course.
私以外を募集してください。
気が向いた時でいいです。また遊びに来てくださいね。
What's sad, too, is this kind of connection. Just like this being the manager for a baseball team. This is the kind of thing where she could find more meaning and happiness in her life outside of just Satoshi, you know? But she isn't, you know? That's just, I don't know, that's just kind of sad, right? Because, like, she talked about how boring and awful her life is, right? It's like a little thing like this, being the manager for the baseball team. Even if Satoshi's not here, you could find some kind of fulfillment through it, you know?
それにほら、あなたがいないとサトシ君が戻ってきた時寂しがりますよ。
True. I ignored him and turned around. I'd already set up my schedule with Mion, so I didn't have to ask her every time anymore. I tried to contact her a couple times to ask how Satoshi-kun was doing in school, but I hadn't been able to get through to her. Interesting. Apparently, the hag had sensed that I might be in contact with Sis. In other words, Sis was being watched. As a result, it hasn't been easy to contact her. Kasai, who had been helping me contact her, seemed to also have been marked. People knew he was loyal to me. Oh god, so you really have no one now. I haven't seen him for a while either. Yeah, I mean, like, literally no one. Please, why don't you stay being the baseball manager? You need something. All I could do was wonder how Sachi-kun was doing. I was frustrated because there's no way for me to know. My head was filled with worries. But something surprised me out of the blue. Somebody called out to me when I was about to leave the field on my bike. Oh, what's up, Rena? What's up, girl? What's funny, Rena doesn't end up ever knowing this was Shion, not Mion, right? Because Rena was also surprised by Shion's real existence, right? Well, kinda, I think. Did we ever get real confirmation if Rena actually knew about Shion or not? Because obviously she told Keiichi, she had that really good scene, that talk with Keiichi, about, like, Mion and Shion, like, the differences between them, all of that, you know. And it seemed like in that conversation that she was hinting at the idea of Mion and Shion being the same person. But there's also, like, the deeper meaning behind it, which was, like, Mion's feelings about femininity and, like, that being applied to, like, Shion and all of this, you know. I guess it's unclear. That conversation could have been in the context of Rena knowing about it or not, I suppose. I'd never seen this girl before. Luckily, she called me Mi-chan. There's only one person who refers to Mion that way, as far as I know.
Rena か。珍しいね。レナがここに来るなんて。
Her name is Raina Ryugu. You even know her proper name, I suppose. Her real name is Raina, but she wants to be called Rena. So that's what we call her. She moved here in April. I had some information on her, but it was all ambiguous. I don't know if this is going to come up at all, but it's interesting. This name thing, right? Her real name being Raina, but she wants to be called Rena, right? It's interesting because Shion also has some name-related trauma with the Shion Mion thing, the demon symbol, the demon kanji in the name, right? I don't know. I wonder if she has any thoughts on that, you know, like about Rena and her having like this name that she chooses to use that's different, you know. I had some information on her, but it was all ambiguous. Sis was still a bit uncertain about her since she's so new. Yeah, she only moved here in April, right? It was hard for me to handle someone like that. I didn't know how to act around her as Mion. So I decided to pretend to be in an obvious sulky mood. That way, she wouldn't talk to me as much, assuming that Mion was simply feeling bad. The sad thing is that Rena is, like, very sweet, and she's gonna try and make you feel better. Well, that's how I really am, anyway.
みーちゃんは帰り？うん。気分が優れないの。悪いね。じゃあ一緒に帰ろう。
Oh god. I wanted to say I'd rather be alone, but there's only one road to Hinamizawa. I wonder if she would go with her, try and see Satoshi. You certainly could. Go to Hinamizawa, right? So asking to be alone with her would look odd. The only way not to seem suspicious would be to walk home with her. Exactly. Oh, there we go. Right. Rena quietly nodded. I unlocked my bike.
みーちゃん、傘は？
It's supposed to rain.
持ってないけど。今日はこの後、天気崩れるかもしれないんだって。
Rika's having a celebration.
傘ないなら急ごう。
Huh. Interesting. As she predicted, we were attacked by pouring rain on our way. God, I used to ride my bike to school every day, and, like, there were some days it would just start raining so hard, like, on my way there or back. I had, like, some distinct memories of one day it started raining, like, so ridiculously hard as I was, like, almost home, and I just got completely soaked. It was, like, awful. We ended up taking shelter in a small shack in front of a bus stop.
すごい降りだけど。
Ooh.
これはそんなに長引きそうじゃないね。
Wonder if it's the
向
same
こうの
one
空は明るいもの。
that, like, Akasaka met Rika at? I don't know.
そうだね。
Interesting. Weather is commonly used for, like, you know, thematic analogies in a way, right? The sky being clear, it looks like it won't last long. I wonder, huh? I heard the sound of rain pattering on the rooftop and raindrops jumping into puddles. It sounded loud, but it made me feel strangely calm. I zoned out for a moment. Then Rena talked to me while looking up at the rainy sky.
最近元気ないって聞いたから心配してたんだよ。
All the baseball team members knew I was depressed because I hadn't seen Sachi-kun recently. Most of them attend the school in Hinamizawa, so it wasn't surprising that she knew as well. I hadn't been able to contact Sis these past few weeks, but I was sure she had an idea of how I felt about Sachi-kun, and how I would feel if he didn't come to his baseball practice. Sis was probably pretending to act a little depressed during the day today in Hinamizawa to avoid creating a big gap between our moods. but neither of us knew the details about the other right now. So she wouldn't be able to answer if others asked her what was wrong. She'd only be able to say, leave me alone. That might lead more people to become worried. Rena must have thought Mion was depressed. That must be why she came all the way to see me. She must have known what was going on, because she knew that I was at the baseball field.
Satoshi-kun, 構ってくれないから寂しい?
He's avoiding all of them, not just not going to baseball. So much like Keiichi, right? Now we're really seeing those similarities between Keiichi, Onikashi, and here, right? Having deduced what was going on with Satoshi-kun from just what she said. I read that wrong, but who cares? He'd been distancing himself from others lately because of exhaustion. That's what it sounded like, at least.
さとこちゃんの件でだいぶ悩んでるみたいだった。
Yeah.
サトシ君はすごく追い詰められてると思う。
You don't want to say something crazy about Sadako right now, Shion.
かわいそうだよね。
Yeah.
サトシ君は本当に妹思いだからね。
As he should.
偉いよ。
Yeah.
本当に。
What I'd said sounded hollow, as I knew too well how much of a burden Sadako had become. That's still like a weird thing to say, right? Because it's about the abuse. It's not about the sister, right? But again, of course she would say that. What I'd said sounded hollow, as I knew too well how much of a burden Sadako had become. Exactly. Just like yourself, right? In your
だ
minds.
からってみーちゃんまで落ち込んじゃったらかえってサトシ君を追い詰めちゃうように思うかな。かな。
私に追い詰めるつもりなんて。
Of course.
それはもちろん知ってるよ。
What she's worried about.
でもだからこそ学校にいる時のサトシ君を笑顔で迎えてあげられなかったら
I feel cornered.
本当にサトシ君は追い詰められちゃうよ。
Yeah.
みーちゃんはたとえ嘘でも笑顔が作れる強い人間だって知ってる。
It's like you can't help but think that what ends up happening with his aunt definitely came from a place of being cornered, right? Like.
だから嘘でも笑ってほしいの。
Shion sure can do that.
最初はたとえ嘘でもね。笑顔って最後には本物になるんだよ。
Lies can become true. Yeah, yeah. What she was saying in a nutshell was this. Both Satoshi-kun and Sadako were totally wiped out. If Mion was also depressed, even though she's the sort of person who usually lightens the mood, the situation would be stuck in a vicious cycle. Rena sounded more like she was trying to give me advice than trying to console me. She must be more mature than she looks. God, she's so worried about maturity, you know? Sis told me that she was a funny girl with a few bad habits, but she's also very... Yeah, exactly. But she seemed to have another, very mature side to her.
みーちゃんはサトシ君のこと好き?
Such a hard question to answer. It's so sad because it's Shion, it's not Mion, right? So it's like she can't... God, it just has to hurt so much, you know?
好き。
Though I shouldn't have told her that, yeah. I immediately responded.
なら笑おう。
Rena smiled herself.
みーちゃんの笑顔できっとサトシ君に元気を分けてあげられると思う。
Like if Shion could just be herself, that would be so nice, right? It's so unfair in a way that Mion has people like Rena that she can turn to and have these talks with, right? And Shion doesn't. Shion has no one, right? Even now, having this conversation, she has to pretend to be Mion, you know? Like, of course, and the other sad thing is Rena would... I'm sure Rena would be her friend if she knew she was Shion. If Rena... Mion could be like, hey, I'm actually Mion's secret twin sister Shion, and I'm sure Rena would still talk to her. Like, that's the crazy thing, right? But of course, Shion would never do that.
みーちゃんはそれしかできないことに落胆しかけているかもしれないけれどそれでもね多分それが一番サトシ君の力になる。
That's like all Shion ever does in a way, right? That's kind of the sad thing. I wonder what Shion's reaction to that proposition will be, you know? Because that's what Shion does all the time already, right? Is this idea of, like, changing the way she acts, acting the way she does all the time for the sake of Mion, essentially, right? Basically, you know?
理屈ではわかるけどね。笑えったって
Yeah.
そう簡単にはできないよ。
Rena giggled and
野
nodded.
球の練習
Nodded.
にもさバイ
Noddled?
トが終わっ
That's
た
not a
ら
word.
きっと帰ってくるから。
It's a part-time job. I must ask that question, but I managed to stop myself. From the tone of Rena's voice, it sounded like it was something everyone knew. Oh, at the grocery store, right.
いつ終わるんだろうね。
お金が貯まるまでだろうけど。
Oh, saving up money. Right, the idea. Yeah. They're saving up money for, it was either to run away, which Shion disagrees with in the end, or to just buy the present for Sadako, right?
どんなに遅くても、さとこちゃんの誕生日までには終わるよ。
And Shion, it was Shion, right, said that what was he buying for, like a stuffed animal or something, was gone on the day he disappeared, right? I tried to figure out what was going on from what she said. I had to listen very carefully to uncover the whole picture. Satoshi-kun seemed to be working in order to make some money. I don't think it's easy to find a job when you're still in school. Sis might have had something to do with it. His job only seemed temporary, and it seemed to have something to do with Sadako's birthday. It wasn't that difficult to figure out. Satoshi was working and saving up to buy his little sister something expensive for her birthday. Oh, she's gonna be so mad. He was trying to comfort her, even though he was so torn up himself. Sadako again, yeah. Satoshi-kun was already worn out because of her, and he was now working for her sake, even though she was exhausted. How stupid. It would be easier for him to just forget about Sadako. Exactly, right? Like, it's just so telling about what her real thoughts about her relationship with Mion have to be, right? Like, does she think Mion has, like, forgotten her in this way, right? She just thinks it's better off that way, essentially, right? Or at least it would be better off if Mion did, if she hasn't entirely, you know? Hi, Rena. Okay. What? Does Rena know? Does Rena know? Rena hates lies. Rena does hate lies, right? Rena sure does hate lies, so Shion, you might have fucked up, girl. Oh, fuck. Oh, God. I was startled when I realized Rena was looking straight into my eyes. She was smiling, but her eyes looked creepy. I never voiced what I was thinking, but she was looking at me as though she figured out that I was blaming Sadako. She beamed when she noticed my fear. She smiled as though she understood that I thought that way because of love. She was giving me the creeps. Or it's just because of that. Or it's just because of that. Okay. Because that is the other situation where Rena gets, Rena's very protective of all the friends, right? As she should be, Like, she's gotten mad at Keiichi for, being, like, acting like that about Mion, kinda, I hear thunder roar in the distance. God, that's a jump scare, huh? The rain began to pick up.
さとこちゃんがサトシ君を独占してることに
Right.
嫉妬を感じてる
It's very unfair, yeah. I avoided answering immediately this time, but Rena seemed to know what I was thinking already.
別にみーちゃんがそう思っても私は軽蔑しないよ。人を一途に好きになるときってそういうものだもん。
What's sad, too, is I wonder if Rena never learns the truth about this, that this was really Shion and that Mion herself never actually had these feelings about Satoshi. In Chapter 2, when Mion shows up and is crying about Keiichi to Rena, God, Rena must just think Mion is helpless, huh? She's fallen for everyone.
ありがとう。
Huh.
でもみーちゃんは今までずっとさとこちゃんを励ましてくれてたよね。
Right.
それって私すごく立派なことだと思うな。
さとこは仲間だもの。当然でしょ。
I sounded so fake. I felt like spitting on the floor.
私たちにはさとこちゃんもさとしくんもどうやったらこの苦境から救ってあげられるのか。
I was wondering if she's gonna end that. I was wondering if she's gonna end that line with "until Watanagashi," because I wonder if Rena loves the curse, right? Or she thinks the curse is real. I don't think she loves it. She thinks the curse is real. I wonder if Rena thinks one of them would be the target of the curse this year. I don't know.
さとこがサトシ君にべったりしすぎなんだよ。
I guess she's never really been one to like predict who it's gonna be.
さとこがもっとしっかりすれば、
Don't say
サトシ
that.
君が
Don't
こ
say
こまで追い
that.
詰められることはない。
Don't say that.
はっきり言うね。
Yeah. Rena nodded with an unflinching smile, even though my remarks could be taken as harsh. Yeah, they sure could be taken as harsh, Shion. She's such a warped perspective on this. What was this mysterious girl thinking? It was difficult to get a read on her.
サトシ君もさ、ほんの少しはそう思っていると
It's the
こ
sad thing,
あるかも
right?
しれないね。
It'd be hard. It would be so. He's such a strong person.
Eh?
Rena kept smiling, but her smile looked strangely cold.
サトシ君も多分
Yeah,
心のどこ
has
か
to
で
be just
サトコ
unimaginable,
ちゃんを
you
か
know.
ばい続けることに疲れを感じてると思う。
Sadly, Shion is going to take that as motivation to view it in this way and to do something about Sadako. Given the type of person Rena is, I don't think she'd say something if she wasn't certain of it. Because of that, she must have been confident in what she just told me.
どうしてそう思う？
私、サトシ君に打ち明けられたから。
Okay. Sachi-kun secretly confessed to her. Rena asked me to keep it that way. Of course, everyone goes to Rena for
サ
help.
トシ君がね、兄として頼られることに
Yeah,
苦痛を感じる。
can't blame him.
それはとても罪深いことだと知っているけど。ってね。
I didn't think he would say something like that. But, however, it wasn't likely that Rena was lying. I just met her, so I didn't know what made me feel that way. But my hunch told me she was telling the truth. She would never lie. I heaved a huge sigh. Sachi-kun must have gotten so tired that he couldn't help telling someone. Even so, even if he thought that way, he wouldn't tell somebody so easily. Maybe Rena led him to do so. He might be capable of something like that. I maybe. I don't understand, this girl. It had only been a little while since we'd met, but I'd already started talking about something I was keeping deep inside of me. Does she have some kind of supernatural power to reach into people's minds and drag out what they're thinking? No, Shion, what I think is going on here is, like, you always hold in all of your feelings and never talk to anyone about anything because you don't have any friends or any family or anyone in your entire life at all. So, you want to talk to people, and Rena's, like, easy to talk to. Maybe that's crazy, though, you know? It must be a supernatural power. It suddenly hit me that I was sitting with this creepy girl in a tiny shack. Yeah, she's gonna kill you. It's over. I've been dragged into her strange world. I don't think Sis has realized Rena's real personality. She thinks Rena is just a funny girl with some strange habits. She would have told me if she knew. Right. Oh god.
サトシ君に打ち明けられるくらいに信頼されてるんだね。羨ましい。
Huh.
別に信頼されてるわけじゃない。私が経験者だからだと思う。
Oh, really? I'm trying to think what she's referring to.
経験？レナにも兄弟をかばったりした経験が。
ひたひたと。
Oh no. Okay, I was gonna think. Yeah, it's that she's experienced. Right. Of course. Interesting. The footsteps. Okay.
ずっと足音がついてきて、夜は枕元にまで立たれて見下ろされる経験。
So, Shion, what does Shion think about the curse, right? The curse, right? She certainly has she has some thoughts on it. She kind of, like, believes it, like, a little bit. She thinks it's, like, you know, too much of a coincidence for it to just be a coincidence that these murders have happened every year, right? And it's unclear what she really thinks. She hasn't really directly entertained the idea that it's literally Oyashiro-sama's curse, right? But I'm curious. Huh? Literally. Sorry, Rena. What are you talking about? I turned around to face her, and got the chills. Oh. Though she was smiling, her eyes looked ice cold. I trembled, and froze with my eyes open.
みーちゃんにはない？
Nope. Not yet.
ないと思う。多分。
Ahahaha. Oops. Rena kept laughing self-derisively. I tried to figure out what she was
みー
saying.
ちゃんはひなみ沢から逃げ出そうとか、もっと都会に行きたいなとか、
Oh, yeah, you can't leave.
そういうことを考えたこと
Oh,
は
right, and
ある。
Shion has thought directly about this idea of not being allowed to leave, right? She thought earlier about, like, leaving, but not wanting to. I didn't know how to respond. Rena waited for my answer, urging me to speak with her silence.
ないよ。
You sure have.
私は地元好きだし。
だよね。みーちゃんはそうだと思う。
Uh-huh. Oh, God. Right. We haven't heard that laugh in a while. It didn't seem like a good idea to lie to her. Ren has some kind of power I can't grasp. She can read people's minds just by seeing the slightest change in their expressions. Or you're just a bad liar. Everyone's a bad liar. So I had to tell her the truth.
そうならば、みーちゃんは大丈夫。
But you can't
お社
leave.
様には怒られない。
Right.
お社様
Oyashiro-sama. That's Hinamizawa's guardian deity. I couldn't understand why she mentioned that name. My mind stopped for a moment.
お社様。
She calmly repeated the name as if trying to teach me something. Yeah, I remember. Oyashiro-sama never allows heathens to desecrate Hinamizawa. Oyashiro-sama never allows the villagers to leave, either. Those are the rules. Slowly, I recalled the fear of the curse which supposedly caused the dismemberment murder and the death of the Hojo couple. When I was sent to the institution, I had this fear. I was scared that if I went to that faraway boarding school, I'd fall under the curse. But I should be okay. I escaped from the school and returned to my hometown, to Okonomiya to be precise, but it should be okay according to the kids' rules, because I love Hinamizawa. The hag forces me to live this suffocating life, but I still chose to stay in this place. I don't believe I'm breaking Oyashiro-sama's rules. Even though the Sonozaki family had selfishly banished me to a remote place, I came back here anyway. Oyashiro-sama should even bless me for that. I guess I'm trying to convince myself that the curse doesn't apply to me. All I'm thinking about right now is how, thematically, I've never really been able to square this whole not being able to leave thing. I don't really know, like, what it means, right? What it's always reminded me of is, like, generally, it's about, like, this, like, sense of community and, how in the club, in the previous chapters with, like, Keiichi narrator, right? Whenever the club starts breaking down, everything becomes terrible, right? It's always directly linked to that, right? Crazy shit starts going on when the club is, like, split up, right? It just represents how, you know, when you separate yourself from other people and become, like, more isolated, things become bad. That's a pretty hot take, right? And I've always just thought this idea of not being able to leave is kind of in the same vein of that, right? But I'm just not sure. I think there has to be more to it thematically. I just don't know what. I guess I'm trying to convince myself that the curse doesn't apply to me, but I think I'm still afraid of it.
私は地元好きだから、その意味ではお社様のたたりがあるとは思っちゃいないね。模範的だとすら思ってるけど。
Oh, I guess.
それは私も認める。
I think
だか
Rena...
らこそ、サ
okay.
トシ君のことはわかんない。
Right.
どうして？
サトシ君は心の
Right.
どこかで
Sure. Oh, yeah.
ひなみ沢を捨てて
Huh.
どこかへ逃げ出したいと思ってるから。
Eh? I gave an inaudible cry. While I was feeling sad that Satoshi-kun hadn't shown up for practice, he still lived in Hinamizawa. So, I'd never even considered the thought of him going away.
サトシ君が家出したがってるってこと？
無意識のうちにお社様が枕元に立つの
Yeah,
は多
interesting.
分意識すらしてなかったと思う。
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if we can trust Rena on this exactly, right? Because Rena, from my perspective, she uses this whole curse business as some kind of, like, coping mechanism for something about, like, her own actions and everything, you know? Like, whatever happened at her old school, which is so unclear, right? It's something with that, right? That's why she's so convinced by this curse thing, you know? So she really has, like, a faulty line of logic with this, I think. I guess I don't disagree that Sachi could be thinking of running away, like, maybe. I guess to me, it's like the clearer through line here, the reason why he'd start being affected by the curse, the shit that makes you go crazy, as I prefer to call it, is because of, like, the emotional thing, right? The emotional trigger that it seems like is required for, you know, it's like this isolation, this separation from other people seems like is always, like, a factor to it, you know? I still had no idea what she was talking about. I continued to try to figure out what she was saying.
サトシ君が体験していることはすべてお社様のたたりの前触れなの。誰かが遠くからじっと伺って、
God.
誰かがずっとつけてくる、誰かがいつも自分のすぐ後ろから見ている。
Interesting. It follows you. And it's like, and I just want to say, like, this idea of this thing following behind you, right? It's always, like, maybe it's not a stretch to say, you could imagine it being an analogy for, like, this emotional trigger for the curse as well, right? For the shit that makes you go crazy. I don't want to call it the curse. Because in every instance, it has always been, like, that emotion that the character feels when they start undergoing the shit that makes them go crazy, that is, like, amplified by it, right? That feels like the trigger for it, something like that, right? It feels like it's always leading them towards some kind of inevitable conclusion, right? For Keiichi, it was killing Rena and Mion. I mean, that's what he did, right? But more so it was, like, the extreme isolation, all of that, right? It was like these footsteps behind him, like this thing following him, approaching him, and it's like, you know, it's going to happen, right? Like, in Chapter 3 for Keiichi, it was killing Teppei, right? Like, those were the footsteps, like, in a way, right? In Chapter 2 for Shion, I guess it's unclear. We don't really know exactly what was going through her head, but I imagine she killed a whole bunch of people, right? That's kind of just what, like, the footsteps feel like to me. It's just like this thing in the back of your head, like it's behind you, this thing you don't want to address, this emotional thing you don't want to turn around and look at and, like, think about, and it, like, forces you to, right? That's what it feels like the shit that makes you go crazy makes you do, right?
やがて足音は常に自分とずれて一つ余計に聞こえるようになるの。それらは初めのうちはお外でだけだけど、やがて後ろのそれは自分の家の中にまでついてくるようになる。そしてお布団に入って明かりを消してもずっと枕元から見下ろしてるの。
Sometime, I need to go back and read that last tip from Meakashi. I don't think it was the last one, but it was one of the last ones. With Keiichi talking about the footsteps when they went shopping, right? Because what was interesting about the context of that tip, if I remember correctly, is it seemed like it was something that Keiichi was, like, well acquainted with, right? It seems like it was something that Keiichi was, like, used to, the footsteps being behind him, right? It didn't seem like a new phenomenon for him. Which is interesting, because there's something about Keiichi that's never been resolved, really, which are the first lines of the entire story, which was that shit he was thinking on the train about apologies, how anyone can be forgiven for anything. Which has always made me think that there's something in Keiichi's past that he, like, regrets, right? I've equated that to the footsteps, right? That the footsteps being something he, like, regrets. Some kind of something behind him he doesn't want to turn around and face, right? Maybe that's in the same vein, like this emotional outcome, perhaps, or these emotions that people don't want to face, right? Because, like, maybe, like, another connection with the shit that makes you go crazy is... Not only is there an emotional trigger for it, but it's an emotion that what characters are trying to ignore, maybe, right? Like, for Shion, she's certainly trying to ignore all of her feelings about, like, her position in the Sonozaki family, all of that, right? Keiichi, in Chapter 3, that one's easier, maybe it's not. What could you say there was an emotion he was trying to ignore? Like, this feeling of powerlessness, maybe, right? That's what led him to killing Teppei? Maybe you could say that, I guess, right? Chapter 1 for Keiichi... Chapter 1, I think, is even more complicated. It was Keiichi's weird shit about, like, lying and, like, being fake, I think, and, like, his weird thing about, like, multiple versions of everyone. Like, Keiichi's complicated, right? It could have been a lot of things in Chapter 1, you know? But I wonder if you could say that as another, like, maybe requirement or just similarity between everyone who's been affected by it, right? Is an emotion that they want to ignore, and it forces you to, like, look at it, right? That's why it's these footsteps behind you don't want to look at, you know?
ただただ黙ってじっと自らの罪を認める
You to admit your sin. Yeah.
サトシ君は夢見が悪いって最初言い出した。
Like this inevitability.
それで私がどんな夢と聞いたら
Just like hers, I bet.
だから
Yep.
彼に予告したの。その気配がやがて近づき、足音を聞かせるようになり、常にサトシ君を見下ろしているようになったなら、
Right.
それはきっと私の時と同じだから相談してって。
Because I'm just like Keiichi and Meakashi, right? Yeah. Like, remember that night he couldn't sleep, like, at all?
私のことを怪訝に思ったと思う。でも私が予告した通りにお社様の気配が近づくのを感じ、お社様が枕元にまで立つに至って、
Right.
やっと自分の身に起こってることを相談できるのは私しかいないって気づいたの。
Rena didn't look like she was joking. She just calmly told me what had been going on. I couldn't even move. I couldn't tell if her words were a joke or the truth. I could only feel stunned.
私はね、もともとひなみ沢に住んでいたの。小学校に上がる直前で
Okay.
茨城に引っ越した。でも 新しい環境に馴染めなくてね。心の中のお社様に、ひなみ沢に帰れ帰れって何度も呼びかけられてた。
Obviously, like, if I want to say, of course, this whole idea of the shit that makes you go crazy being connected to this emotion, maybe more specifically an emotion someone's trying to ignore. What would I say it was in Runa's case, then? I don't know. I guess, again, it's like we don't know enough about Runa's case. And we don't know if Runa's using this idea of her just having left Hinamizawa and that being it always as an excuse to ignore some kind of real emotional reason. I don't know.
でも小学生の子が泣きながら元の町に帰りたいって言ったって、
Yeah.
どうにも私は現実とお社様の声に板挟みにされてずっと過ごすことになる。そして
Then... Runa paused. It looked like she didn't want to go into the details of what followed. In general, she confused me even more.
結局いろいろあって私はひなみ沢に帰ってくることができた。だからお社様には
How nice.
それで許して
How
も
nice.
らえた。あれ以来お社様の気配を感じることはないもの。でもね、サトシ君は私と違ってひなみ沢にいなが
Right.
ら
Yeah. Oh, just
お
because
社様のたたりを受
she
ける
thinks
こと
he
に
just
なった。
wants to run. Yeah.
それはなぜか。理由は一つ。サトシ君はひなみ沢にはいたけれども、ひなみ沢を捨てて遠
So,
くに逃げたがっていたから。
if Shion takes this seriously, she's gonna want to, what then? Try and make sure Satoshi doesn't want to leave, right?
その心をお社
And
様
how
は
did
許
she
さ
do
な
that?
かったんだね。サトシ君は自問自答を何度も
Although,
繰り
like-
返した挙句に認めたよ。
I feel like Shion really tries to be, like, logical, you know? I just feel like she's not gonna buy this so easily, you know?
ほ
Like,
ら、
so
サト
this
シ君
just accept the curse or
アルバイトをしてるでしょ。
Ryushiro-sama, you know? I don't know.
サトコちゃんが欲しがったあの大きなぬいぐるみは
100,000 yen!
10万円くらいするんだよね。
Jesus!
サトシ君はサトコちゃんの誕生日までに
Oh, God.
その額を稼ごうとして
And the sad thing is, even if he buys it, I wonder... I don't
で
know.
もほら
What would happen to it in that
考
house,
え
you
て
know?
みて。それだけのお金があったら後先を考
He'd be
え
able to
なく
run.
ていいなら、
Mm-hmm.
どこか遠くへ逃げ出す十分な費用になりうるんだよ。サトシ君は無意識のうちにね、サトコちゃんを捨てて
Right,
どこか
right.
遠くへ逃げ出すお金に使ってしまいたいって思う。それはサトシ君にとっては
Of course,
この
of
上なく
course.
罪深いこと。でもさっきみーちゃんが指摘したよ
Oh,
うに、
man.
サトコちゃんの存在
Surprised
自体
Rena
が
would even
サト
say
シ
that.
君の負担になっているのは
Honestly.
事実。サトシ君だってバカじゃないもん。兄として認めたくなかっただけでサトコちゃんが負担になっていることにはちゃんと気づいていた。
Right.
だからサトシ君は葛藤してるんだよ。自分は妹を喜ばせるためのお金を貯めるために
But not
だけれ
really.
ども、それは自分の
Yeah,
心を
yeah.
騙しているだけで、
Interesting.
本当は自分が逃げ出すためのお金を作るためにバイトしてるんじゃないかって。私は逃げ出すべきじゃないと思う。
Of
逃
course.
げ出したってサトシ君は多分一生
For
後悔す
multiple
る。
reasons. Sure, sure.
お社様だってそれを分かってるからサトシ君にこうして警告してくれているの。
What's interesting is we know Shion comes out of this situation being convinced that there's no way Satoshi ran away, right? That's what she's thinking. Like when Keiichi brings up the idea of him having ran at the shrine, right? She gets mad, she's like, no, there's no way he ran away, you know? I wonder why she ends up thinking that there's no way he ran, you
サ
know?
トシ君の心にサトコちゃんを見捨てるなんて悪魔のささやきが早く聞こえなくなるといいんだけども。サトシ君は綿流しの数日後だっけ
She said Watanagashi.
の
Yeah,
サトコちゃんの誕生日にプレゼント
So
を
gotta
間
be
に合わせるため
coming up, right?
今いろいろなアルバイトに精を出してる。
So he kills their aunt on Watanagashi, and he disappears on Sadaku's birthday, right?
心も体も追い詰めてる。そんな苦境がきっとサトコちゃんの誕生日を境に終わるんだって。
But it won't.
Satoshi-kun.
Yeah.
今もお社様のたたりに苛まれている。
God, Shion is just dead silent,
サ
huh?
トコちゃんを守るか見捨てるかの天秤の狭間に立たされながらね。
The torrential rain didn't seem to want to stop. It kept pouring down on the galvanized iron roof, producing a loud noise. Yet in the shack, it fell completely silent. What the hell was Rena talking about? Literally, what the hell is she talking about? I couldn't even grasp half of what she was saying. The only thing I had figured out is that Satoshi-kun was struggling, confused, and in lots of pain, and it's all Sadako's fault. He's suffering from Oyashiro-sama's curse, and Rena had experienced that before? The Watanagashi festival was right around the corner. Interesting. Oyashiro-sama's curse had struck 3 years in a row. There's no guarantee that it wouldn't strike a 4th time. Satoshi-kun was subject to Oyashiro-sama's curse, even now? Of course, she thinks Sashi's going to be the one to die, right? Was he going to skip town? Was he going to be the next victim of Oyashiro-sama's curse? Either way, he might disappear forever, and that would be... Could I do something to prevent it? If I didn't do anything, it would all come to a hopeless end. And I started feeling a sense of dread. I didn't buy the crazy story Rena told me, but if something really was happening to Satoshi-kun, which might bring about some kind of an end, I couldn't help feeling scared. It's true, isn't it? My instinct is always correct. Interesting. I decided to contact Mion despite the danger. Mion got upset at first, but she had to listen to me. God, what happened after that, though? Okay, whatever.
サトシ君のことだけど、どういうことになってるの？最近、だいぶ険しい様子なんだよ。部活に声もかけられない雰囲気。
Yeah.
何それ？声をかけられないから、サトシ君がどういう状況になってるかよく分かってないってこと？ごめん。おねえ、キンキンにまた入れ替わる機会を設けてほしいの。
Okay.
それはもちろん構わないよ。でも最近はちょっと渡流しのお祭りの打ち合わせの絡みで日程の調整が難しいんだよ。何？またバイト？私、ひなみ沢の学校へ行く。
Okay, going to school. You know what I've just realized during all of this? That I feel like I'm stupid for not realizing before? That phone call. Keiichi called, like, the night before Watanagashi or something, asking Mion to bring Sadako to Watanagashi. That was Shion who answered, not Mion. Right? Like, what? Why would Satoshi have called Mion and have been like, I said all that stuff to her? No, that was Shion that he was talking to in that moment, not Mion. Like, for sure, right? Okay, I'm glad we got that figured out. That, like, makes so much more sense, right? Because that is when she said all the stuff about Satoshi and the bear and all that stuff, right? So yeah, that was definitely Shion, not Mion. I don't know why I guess in that moment in that chapter, I just didn't even think about that, right? It wasn't on my mind, the Mion-Shion thing, you know? Makes sense now, though. Anyway, more notebook pages. Why don't I relate my encounter with that creepy girl in the rain? Her name is Rena Ryugu. Her real first name is Raina. I have no idea what kind of girl she really is. One thing is certain, she has no relation to the Sonozaki family. She has no relation to the three families as a whole, either. The Ryugu family used to live in Hinamizawa, but then they moved to Ibaraki. That was before she went to elementary school. They returned to Hinamizawa some years later. Rena Ryugu said she came back because Oyashiro-sama told her to. I don't know what that means, literally. She said it was the curse of Oyashiro-sama, that Oyashiro-sama had stalked her. I think that was probably a hallucination, right? But Satoshi-kun had been interested in that experience. She said that Satoshi-kun was also experiencing Oyashiro-sama's curse. Satoshi-kun told her that he was being followed by some unknown existence. He was surprised to learn that Rena had the same experience before. What is Oyashiro-sama's curse? Why did Rena and Satoshi-kun have a similar experience? I believe that means that somebody put them under surveillance. Somebody must be spying on the next victim of the curse. Since Rena and Satoshi-kun both blindly believed in Oyashiro-sama's curse, they interpreted it as Oyashiro-sama's presence. If paranoia kicked in, they'd feel as if they were experiencing paranormal phenomena. Judging from what Rena said, it seemed that Satoshi-kun had put on surveillance, since long before Watanagashi had been put on surveillance. So, one question comes to mind. Why were they watching Rena? I'm assuming that the surveillance was placed on a victim-to-be of that year. Interesting. If so, I don't understand why Rena went through it. Why did they watch her, even though she was living so far away? She's really... Okay. She's really just trying to grapple with, like, a realistic explanation, obviously, I guess. If she was considered somebody who abandoned the village, I could understand. But she didn't fall victim in the end. Maybe she was forgiven because she came back to Hinamizawa. I guess she still knows something I don't. Interesting. Because, like, that doesn't make any sense, right? Like, Satoshi-kun looked terrible. When he went home, he had to mediate a fight between Sadako and their aunt. He became mentally exhausted. He went to work every day. He became physically exhausted. He no longer communicated with his classmates. He either slept on his desk or was gone somewhere during lunch break. He used to be really gentle. It was painful to see him suffering like that. On top of all that, he was dealing with the curse of Yoshiro-sama. He must have been completely, totally, and absolutely exhausted. That curse was a form of surveillance by those planning to victimize Satoshi-kun that year. Interesting. I wonder, like, maybe it's just realistic that she wants to look for, like, a logical explanation for it, right? Or maybe I wonder if there's something deeper there. This idea that it has to be people. This idea that she wants to reject the curse, or the idea of the curse, right? Entirely, right? Maybe it's because she's scared of it for herself, right? That's probably part of it. That means that the other victim was in the same situation. Satoshi-kun's aunt had also been watched. Oh, did she notice any presence? What about the others? Did the victims of the previous incidents also experience it? I need to investigate the facts in order to prove the curse on Satoshi-kun was actually just surveillance. Interesting. Because then, I mean, obviously she wants this, because then she can do something about it, right? She could save Satoshi as long as it's not actually God killing him, right? Is it surveillance, paranoia, or really the curse? Oh, yeah. Okay. These were probably, like, it's maybe my 2 favorite subchapters, like, ever. Like, I don't even, like, these were so good. I love Shion so much. It's crazy. Oh my god, I love her so much. Yeah, I just, this is so good. This is so good. In terms of, like, first chapters of a game, right? These are the best by far. Oh my god, it's so good. Oh, this is what I love, right? This character stuff, man, it is perfect. Yeah, it's real good. I guess that's it. I don't think there's anything really to cover that we didn't talk about. We're going. We're heading towards something. Well, I mean, we know where we're heading towards to. Sashi's gonna die/disappear. He's gonna beat his aunt to death. Shion's gonna be sad. Rough. Anyway, I guess that's it. So please, subscribe if you enjoy my videos. Leave a comment, tell me what you think. And I'll see you in the next one.